Good evening, and thank you for joining us at our April 2024 board meeting. I am Leah Cruzy, board chair. Joining me are my fellow board members and colleagues, Vice Chair Jim Sandman, Treasurer Chantel Wright, Carissa Stanley Beatty, and joining us soon, we will have Secretary Shakura Adama Thanian and board member Nick Rodriguez. Welcome back to our second board meeting this month. It is unusual for us to have 2 meetings in 1 month. However, we added special board meetings in February, March, April, and June to deliberate and ultimately vote on Aspire, our revised accountability system, and the charter goals policy. As some of you are aware, we were unable to complete work at our April 8th meeting due to extensive public comment regarding Aspire. The method we introduced to receive public comment about Aspire has been valuable in enhancing our board's understanding of the range of perspectives, and it also took much longer than expected. Therefore, we will begin tonight hearing from 5 schools, 4 of which had come to our April 8th meeting but didn't have the opportunity to speak about the notice of concern regarding their school. We apologize to the leaders from those schools and very much appreciate their willingness to join us tonight. They will be the second major item on our agenda following public comment. As we continue to improve our process to hear from the public, we will be continuing the format from the April 8th special meeting. During public hearing portions of our agenda, we will hear from our registered public comment speakers in panels. Each panel will have 15 minutes with 5 registered speakers per panel. 2 would be given to 2 minutes for each registered speaker, leaving remaining 5 for board member Q&A should any arise. And we will continue to refine this process depending on the volume of public comment that we anticipate having at each board meeting. And just really appreciate your grace and patience with us as we endeavor to listen and learn as much as we can, all in service to the students of the District of Columbia. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge last week's Emancipation Day and the start of Passover today at sundown. Last week, DC celebrated the 162nd anniversary of Emancipation Day, the end of enslavement and its abolition in the District of Columbia, more than 2 years before President Lincoln signed the Declaration of Independence. Our work in service to students and school communities is embedded in a much larger and longer history, and it is a privilege to sit among every person here to join us in pursuit of a more fair and equitable future that prioritizes the well-being and success of students, even when that inconveniences adults. Lastly, I'd want to acknowledge that tonight's meeting has been scheduled at the start of a holiday in the Jewish calendar. More than an inconvenience, it suggests a disregard for the students and families who right now are preparing to celebrate Passover, either disrupting that practice or preventing them from participating in tonight's meeting. I take responsibility for having insufficiently recognized this conflict when I approved these dates several months ago. I'm sorry. Your participation and your perspective matter. If you or a member of your school community were impacted and unable to attend this meeting, please submit your comments to publiccomment@dcpcsb.org, and I assure you that this board will consider them alongside all others. We commit to be mindful of and proactively anticipate these conflicts better in the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Walker Davis, who will talk about what we plan to cover this evening.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy, and good evening, board members and our viewing audience. One of the important functions of the Public Charter School Board is reviewing charters, the underlying contract between our board and the board of a public charter school. Pursuant to the School Reform Act, we review the charters every 5 years to ensure schools are following the commitments and promises made in that charter. Specifically, we want to ensure that each public charter school is making progress in meeting its goals, following compliance with applicable federal and local laws, and continues to be fiscally sound. Tonight, we will review the charters of 3 schools: DC Bilingual Public Charter School, 2 Rivers Public Charter School, and Meridian Public Charter School. We will also discuss notices of concern about the Mystery Caller Initiative. We will then review 1 facility amendment and close with a public hearing on Aspire. Public comment on the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide closes tonight. Following this board meeting and through May, we will review feedback and insights gathered throughout the process regarding the Aspire the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide. We will determine what, if any, changes need to be made and prepare a final recommendation to present to this board in advance of the final vote in June. In the coming days and weeks, LEA leaders should expect targeted outreach regarding the high school and adult education frameworks. Unfortunately, we've experienced delays in getting updated simulated outcomes to high schools, and we hope to be able to get these out soon. With respect to the adult education framework, we appreciate our adult education leaders' patience and collaboration as we worked with OSSI to get the necessary inputs to support data modeling. We encourage schools to review the upcoming Aspire Connection and email communications from DC PCSB for ongoing updates on Aspire and the Charter Goals policy. And again, I thank our LEA leaders and this board for active participation along the way, and I look forward to our ongoing work together in service of the students of DC. Chair Kruse, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walker-Davis. Next, we will hear from our registered public comment speakers. At the beginning of every board meeting, the DC Public Charter School Board will hear public testimony related to items on the agenda, and we will listen to testimony for topics not related to any agenda items. Each speaker will have 2 minutes to testify. If you need to make a few additional comments, please email your testimony for us to read at public.comment@dcpcsb.org. And public officials who signed up to testify will be allowed to speak for up to 5 minutes. The hand-raising feature has been disabled. We are trying a new approach to public comment this evening. I will call individuals who signed up to testify based on the topic identified at the time of signing up. As a reminder, all written public comment is available to the public on our website. If you would like to register to provide live testimony or submit a written comment to the board, you can find the public testimony registration and submission information on our website under the Public Comment tab at dcpcsb.org. You can also submit your comments to public.comment@dcpcsb.org or call our public comment line to leave a voicemail testimony at 202-328-2660 and select option 2. As we move through each speaker, Aisha and Courtney, our Zoom hosts for the evening, will promote each speaker from the attendee pool and unmute individuals speaking. Let's hear from the one witness who signed up to speak on non-public hearing related topics this evening. For that, I'd like to invite to testify before the board, Valerie Jablo, to talk about school application information presented to PCSB. Good evening. You have 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, thank you. I am Valerie Jablo, a DC resident commenting. Wildflowers application provides a good example. Neither of the staff memos nor the application itself mention the proposed location being literally right across the street from Ketchum Elementary. They also mention nothing about the fact that another nearby Montessori school, Lee, is expanding both its building and enrollment. And none of these sources of information for you mention explicitly that the proposed facility sits close to the edge of a busy commuter road. The pictures included in the staff memos do not adequately represent that. What is posted on your website of the application has no photos. And neither staff memos nor the application mention details about the school's agreement to not market to a nearby nursery school where many Ketchum students come from. Is this agreement signed? And if so, by whom? And where is it? And if this agreement is not memorialized in a written statement signed by both schools, then what guarantee does it provide, given the high annual staff turnover at DC's publicly funded schools? This information is central to your deliberations, yet the materials available to you leave a lot out and give you leave to ignore the import of what is mentioned. For instance, we learn only in the current staff memo that the ANC voted against the school without any details about its dissent. Given that you approved another new facility recently where ANC voted against it, such public dissent appears to be meaningless. But it is not meaningless to DC taxpayers who have an expectation that decisions made by you in our names come with fully disclosed and considered information to prevent, for instance, oversaturation of publicly funded schools in a small area at a time when budgets everywhere are stretched thin. How can your decisions be in the best interests of the communities most affected by them when such information is not considered or even mentioned? DC charter schools receive $1 billion annually from DC taxpayers. affairs, operating on a principle of hoping everything will work out, which is how this information vacuum appears to work, prioritizes applicants over the people who are in schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jablo. Thank you for our public comment speaker for taking the time to share our perspectives with us. And this concludes the non-public hearing related public comment portion of our agenda this evening. We have set aside time later in the meeting for any public comment related to our Aspire accountability system. Now, board members, as I mentioned earlier, we have adjusted the sequence of some items on our agenda because of the last board meeting. So now I'm going to invite a motion to approve the agenda, and we will move into the next items thereafter.
I move to approve the April 22nd, 2024 board meeting agenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Secretary Adamafanian, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Yep. Chairwoman Cruzy.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon.
Aye.
Treasurer Wright.
Aye.
Board Member Beatty Stanley.
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez is not, he's out. Okay. And I am an aye.
Great, excellent. Yeah, we're okay. All right, thank you. Next on our agenda are the mystery caller notices of concern. For that, I yield the floor to Tricia Francisco, Equity and Access Specialist, to introduce the notice for Apple Tree Public Charter Schools. And I would also like to invite representatives from the school to join us. Jamie Miles, Jack McCarthy, and Elisa Johnson.
Hello, my name is Tricia Francisco, and I am a specialist in the School Performance Department who leads DC PCSB's Mystery Caller Initiative. Under this initiative, which is part of DC PCSB's open enrollment policy, DC PCSB staff call all charter schools and ask questions about the enrollment process for a student with disability or an emerging multilingual learner. If a school gives an inappropriate answer, DC PCSB staff call again to determine if the possible violation was a one-off issue or indicative of a systemic problem. Schools that fail both rounds are eligible to receive a notice of concern. A subsection of these calls are made in Spanish. Further, during this year's Mystery Caller Initiative, DC PCSB staff added more questions regarding a school's program and supports for students with disabilities and emerging multilingual learners to the mystery call so that they could emulate a parent's perspective during the enrollment process. This year, 121 campuses passed their first call and 17 campuses received a round 2 call for a possible open enrollment barrier. Of the 17 campuses who received a round 2 call, 5 failed both the first and second round of calls. The most common reasons for violation were failure to provide language assistance for families with limited English proficiency, asking families for proof of U.S. citizenship, and staff seeming to be unaware of the school's obligation to provide specialized programming for a student with a disability or an emerging multilingual learner. Tonight, staff recommend that the board issue notices of concerns to 5 schools. Assuming the board issues these notices of concerns, DC PCSB will then expect the implicated campuses to do the following: respond appropriately to mystery calls over the next several weeks, and attend DC PCSB's Open Enrollment Design Thinking Workshop on April 23rd. Successful fulfillment of these activities will result in DC PCSB staff asking the board to lift the notice of concerns at the June public meeting. DC PCSB staff recommend that the board issue a notice of concern to Apple Tree Public Charter School for failing the Mystery Caller Initiative. Apple Tree Public Charter School, Lincoln Park, failed both rounds. During the first call, the campus failed to provide language assistance to a caller with limited English proficiency. During the second call, they asked for documentation that may discourage an emerging multilingual learner from applying. Specifically, the campus asked the caller to provide proof of U.S. citizenship. Representatives from the school are here to answer your questions.
Good evening, Apple Tree community. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I'd like to begin by apologizing that the last board meeting, I know you waited quite a long time for your item. And I don't even know at what hour we decided that we would delay this conversation. But appreciate your patience with us. I'd like to open up the floor. First, is there anything you would like to say before we invite other board members to ask some questions?
Other than good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be here. Good to see everyone.
Board members.
Good evening, Apple Tree team. Can you talk to us a little bit about what factors contributed to your staff being unable to respond appropriately to questions about enrolling emerging multilingual learners at your campus?
Good evening. So based on what we've were able to uncover is that there were individuals who were not part of the regular enrollment team or that constantly interacted with families who may not have known the proper process of all of the documents that are required, as well as using the language line. And that has been altered, corrected. So now that information is at the front desk for anyone who answers the phone, because of the 13 campuses, that was the one campus that received it.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, what's your role at the campus?
I am the enrollment manager for the network.
Okay. So can you talk to us about what does the training look like for Apple Tree staff around open enrollment in general? I understand what you're saying that sometimes at the desk, some people are going to answer the phone. What does it look like to make sure your staff is fully aware of open enrollment policies?
So we do meet with all of the operations specialists who are the individuals who do the enrollment at the campus, as well as the principals to review the checklist of the items that are required for enrollment, as well as we have our language acquisition personnel speak to the group and remind them and go through the PowerPoint for the language line, how to use it, what the access code is, encourage them to practice beforehand having to use it, as well as we have our special education director or coordinator to also speak at that same time, just outlining, making sure that we understand the general purpose and services that we offer at Apple Tree. So that training happens before the season starts. And again, all of the operations specialists who receive the training, as well as principals, are included in that.
Is my understanding correct that you have now taken steps to be sure that any person who is dealing with parents, even temporarily on a fill-in basis, has been trained about how to respond appropriately to inquiries like the ones that caused the problem here?
Yes, so we let principals know that they are accountable for sharing this information with their staff, but also at each front office desk is a one-pager for special education services, a one-pager for language acquisition, as well as the I Speak cards and the language line number and passcode. So those, each front desk office has that at the front, so that any individual who may encounter or may answer the phone, because we do have part-time staff that sometimes answer the phones and may not interact with families on a regular basis, that they are aware of that information, and principals have been held accountable for ensuring that their staff is aware of where that information is.
Are those materials new?
No, they are not new. It was a miss in missing the idea that someone else may be answering the phone. So many of our OSs and principals are already familiar. They've been with us and they understand. So it was they knew it but didn't really think about it's important for everyone who may interact with families understanding that process. There's also a checklist of items and documentation that is to be collected, that has been created, that is also available for anyone who may interact with families who are doing enrollment, dropping off paperwork, or interacting.
Thank you. I think that message, everyone needs to know this, is just critically. I think this is really, really important. The mystery caller program is actually pretty forgiving in giving you 2 chances. Most parents are going to call only once. And if they get bad information the first time, they're going to think your school can't serve their student and your obligation is to serve their student. So I understand what you've done. I wish this hadn't happened. But I think I'd encourage you, it sounds like you've already done this, but to reinforce the message across all your schools, not just the one where this happened, that every single person who might be dealing with the parent needs to be familiar with what the accurate information that has to be communicated is the first time.
Yes.
Other board members? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the issuance of a notice of concern to Apple Tree Public Charter School.
Second.
Thank you. Secretary Adamafanian, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Yes. Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Chairwoman Cruzy, did Board Member Rodriguez leave a proxy vote?
I don't have a proxy vote for him.
And then I am an aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this evening, Apple Tree.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Next, Tricia, you'll stay with us a bit longer. Could you please introduce the notice for Eagle Academy Public Charter Schools? And also, I would like to invite representatives from that school to join us, Dr. Joe Smith, Aaron Lentner, Sabrina Ogilvie.
DC PCSB staff recommend that its board issue a notice of concern to Eagle Academy Public Charter School for failing the Mystery Caller initiative. Eagle Academy Public Charter School, Capitol Riverfront, provided non-compliant responses in both rounds of this year's initiative. During both calls, the staff member was unaware of the school's obligation to provide specialized programming for emerging multilingual learners and expressed they could provide the student a Spanish teacher. Providing a Spanish teacher for an emerging multilingual learner does not provide the student access to learning English and the skills needed to access grade-level contents. Additionally, the staff member encouraged the caller to look at other schools that would best fit their needs. Representatives from the school are here to answer your questions.
Welcome, Dr. Smith. Are we expecting anyone else from the Eagle Academy community?
Yeah, I had a hard time joining myself. My chair of my board and Sabrina Ogilvie are also linked in, so I'm not sure why they're not on. I see
I'm here, Joe.
There we go.
Oh,
Sometimes
you're here. You're under me. Okay, I see. That's the chair of my board.
Okay. So Mr. Lentner, you're here and we're waiting for Ms. Ogilvie to.
We can proceed though if you want. Our one school passed, our other school did not. We understand why our other school did not. I'm just surprised we did not. The person who answered both the principal and our administrative assistant were called away from the desk, and our nurse answered the phone, I believe, on both occasions. Our administrative assistant did take the training as was recommended. Our nurse was scheduled for the training, but a child had an accident in which the child was injured their arm. And so she, between that and working with the child and with the parents, She missed her training, and I believe she will attend the training tomorrow. We have made sure that people who are answering the phone or likely to answer the phone at the small school are in fact trained on what they're doing. And we are going to train the whole staff because it's a small school. There aren't that many employees in the school. So we will also make sure that in the next I'm trying to remember whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we will have the staff together and we will cover how to answer the phone and what they should do in these instances. But the people likely to do this, by the way, our nurse really knew what to do, but she hadn't done it in years. So she made a mistake. She has been with us for, I think, 18 of our 21 years. So she has done this before, but she just forgot and made a mistake and directed the person not only once, but twice in the other direction to look at another school. We, in fact, do and have done multilingual programs and will continue to do so as the demand arises. We have no problem with that at all. Aaron, do you want to comment on anything?
Just to echo what you said, Joe, I think this is an isolated incident, but I do appreciate what you said, Vice Chair Sandman, that as a parent, former parent of an Eagle student, I would not have called the school twice. So this is a serious issue, and I've worked with Joe to make sure that there's appropriate signage, and everyone who could possibly answer the phone has been communicated that this is important, and one missed call is too many, in my opinion.
I didn't mean to jump the gun.
No, please go ahead, Jim.
I think it's important that your training address not only what to do, but what not to do. No caller should ever be told, look at another school. That's a signal. There's a narrative out there that public charter schools don't fulfill their legal obligation to serve all students. They skim, it's called, they skim the best, and they don't serve the other people who are left to be served by DCPS schools. That's the story. Experiences like this feed that narrative. They fuel it. That is not helpful. So I think that your training should not only be, here's what to say, but I think you should have some what not to say too. Someone without adequate training might think that they're being helpful and saying you might want to look at another school. But that is heard to mean that your school does not have the services that their student, the caller's student needs, and you have to have those services.
Yeah, Mr. Salmon, we have had students into our school, in fact, in both of our schools where we've provided those services, and we are happy to do that. Given our current enrollment, I would welcome as many of those students coming to our school as possible, because we can service them and we can take care of them. This was a longtime employee, as I said, 17 years, who made a mistake. And we are correcting it, and she will attend the training. And we are correcting it with our own organization because we cannot afford to turn away any student. We welcome all students of all backgrounds. As you may be aware, our disabilities is about 23% at this point. We will, and we have had programs for students who were not English speakers, and we would be happy to resurrect those programs.
Thank you
So,
very much. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Shakora.
Thank you very much, Eagle Academy staff. Just, I want to be clear in terms of what I heard in your presentation. The way in which you all are planning to remedy it, that particular staff member will attend a training, and you all are looking to train the entire staff on expectations?
I have not trained the entire staff. I've trained some of the people who are likely to answer the phone, but we will train the entire staff. We will bring them all together. In fact, we'll refresh the training at our large school as well, which passed, but it just shows that it's possible for someone to get on the phone because somebody else is called away. So we'll make sure that that happens.
Okay, thank you. And again, I appreciate the ownership here, and I appreciate the strategies that you all will put in place to support that.
When you screw up, you have to admit it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I like the idea. We have a little cheat sheet next to the phone, but I
Yeah,
like the
right
idea
now.
of that says what to say, but I like adding what not to say to that cheat sheet. So I think we'll take
Yep.
that as well.
Yeah, we'll make sure we add to that. We put in what to say, but we'll also add, thank you, Aaron. I forgot about our taping that to the desk so that anyone who answers the phone can see what they should be saying. And also what they should not be saying. That we did not add that, Aaron. Thank you.
So I think you all as schools are we have a few of the LEAs on here. You're going to hear us saying the same things. Yes, training is important, but also understand how schools operate. There may be times where something's going on and you need people whoever's close to the phone to answer the phone. Yeah. So in addition to training, it is critical. Just have the materials. Joe, you know this, you've been running this school for 20 plus years, right? Have it at the taped on the desk. Very clear, make sure everyone understands it. An enrollment question, it's right there in terms of what you do and don't do. But just also in addition to training, have it at the desk. So I'm glad to hear it's there. Just make sure it's refreshed. People know it, put a yellow post-it on the phone because things are going to happen, right? You're going to have people who have to step in, but that does not excuse, as Jim shared, right? Like the narrative of who we are and how we serve. I know you know personally, Joe, what that means for us in this city. So just continue to have it at the desk as you do training as well. It's a very serious issue. And an easy fix. I think it's an easy fix because we do know the school is an open enrollment, but parents don't know that if that's not what we're telling them.
I know you know us, Chantel, and you know this is very atypical of what we do. We take everyone. So I'm just sorry that did not get communicated, and it was a gross error. But we have gotten it corrected, and the person will attend the training. Yeah.
Before I invite a motion, I just want to acknowledge that what I wish I had done right at the top was to apologize for the delay in the last board meeting. I imagine you had sat on hold for quite a long time, though our board meetings are riveting and it was important for you to listen to anyway. But thank you for your patience in coming back tonight.
A lot of interesting information. Yeah.
Yes. Always worthwhile.
Yep.
Colleagues, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the issuance of a notice of concern to Eagle Academy Public Charter School.
I second.
Thank you. Secretary Adamafanian, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon, Vice Chairman Salmon,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
and Chairwoman Cruzy. Do we have a proxy here for Mr. Rodriguez?
Mr. Rodriguez should be joining momentarily.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And I am an aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Tricia, stick around a little longer. Will please introduce the notice for Hope Community Public Charter Schools. And for that, I would like to invite representatives from the school to join us. Clifford Owens, Carrie Smith, and Barrington Tolliver.
DC PCSB staff recommend that its board issue a notice of concern to Hope Community Public Charter School for failing the Mystery Caller initiative. Hope Community Public Charter School provided non-compliant responses in both rounds of this year's initiative. During both calls, the staff member was unaware of the school's obligation to provide specialized programming for students with disabilities. The staff member expressed that the school did not provide the necessary accommodations to serve a student with autism or Down syndrome. Representatives from the school are here to answer your question.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. So in reference to the mystery caller, I wanted to say that the front desk office manager was new to her role. However, she has been trained about specialized programming. So when it comes to enrollment, she has been trained on that. I also would like to add that we instituted a training referencing enrollment to the front desk office manager. We asked that at the front desk for our front desk office manager that she reaches out to the student enrollment coordinator, which is myself, the principal, who is Dr. Owens, as well as our special education coordinator. Her name is Ms. Gowie. We provided her with the script once we received notice in reference to or when it comes to the enrollment. We do not discriminate against any family as well as any student. So it is unfortunate that this happened, but moving forward, the goal in reference to our team or in reference to leadership is to make sure that everyone across the board is trained. We will be in the training tomorrow, but it's to make sure that everyone is speaking the same language and making sure that we all understand as a school that everyone has the opportunity to join, no matter if the person is new or not. So moving forward, our team will make sure that everyone across the board is trained in reference to being able to speak towards enrollment for any student or family.
Thank you, Hope Team. Thank you, Mr. Tolliver. And before I begin to welcome questions from the board, I also want to acknowledge and apologize for the delay from the last board meeting when your item was supposed to come up and our meeting got quite a bit delayed. And it took us a while to be able to let you know that we were going to reschedule it. So thank you for your patience. Board members, does anyone have any additional questions?
So Hope Team, I'm just going to reiterate, I know you all are listening as everybody's getting ready to pull up. In addition to training, please also make sure that those materials are available at the front desk, not just to your office manager, because again, things happen. You're running a school and you never know when the phone may ring and somebody asks those same questions. So making sure that the materials that you get from the training, the materials around open enrollment and access for all is available at the desk, laminate it, tape it, put a post-it, whatever you got to do so that people have the answers, information right there. Because the other piece that you don't want, what I did hear you say, Ms. Tyler, is like when there are questions regarding SPED or questions regarding other things, that it's sending the parent to someone else. And again, the parent might not have that time. They may just need to answer right then and there, and they deserve it, because the answer is yes. We are a public school. We are open and we will serve you. So that is the answer. And so regardless of who he or she speaks to, the answer is yes. So making sure that that is very clear, even at the desk, for everyone who may answer the phone is critical.
This is Dr. Owens here, Principal Hope. We do have all the information taped at the desk, as well as a checklist that's there for anybody other than our front office manager to answer the phone. All the information is there, as well as all information that talks about specialized programming as well.
Okay, well, good. So then now the next step, Dr. Owens, make sure that they implement it or they read it, right? And
Yes, ma'am. So I'm just so sorry that we have to be here and this occurred, but everybody's well trained up, so it won't happen again.
Good. Thank you.
And did I hear that members of the staff will participate in the training PCSB staff are holding tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Thank you. Board members, if we have no additional questions, I will invite a motion. And I also want to acknowledge that board member Rodriguez is now on the line. He's on audio.
I move to approve the issuance of a notice of concern to Hope Community Public Charter School.
Second.
Thank you. Secretary Adamafanian, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Yes. Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty, and I apologize publicly for saying your name wrong the whole time. Just kidding, I apologize.
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Thank you, Hope Team.
Thank you.
Next, Tricia will introduce the notice for Roots Public Charter School. And for that, I'd like to invite representatives from the school to join us. Mr. Rashiki Kuykendall, Kebiana Holmes, Cameron Poles, and Gilda Sherrod Ali.
PCSB staff recommend that its board issue a notice of concern to Roots Public Charter School for failing the Mystery Caller initiative. Roots Public Charter School provided non-compliant responses in both rounds of this year's initiative. During the first call, the staff member was unaware of the school's obligation to provide specialized programming for emerging multilingual learners. Further, during both calls, the staff member asked the caller for documentation that can discourage an emerging multilingual learner from applying. Specifically, they asked the caller to provide proof of U.S. citizenship. Representatives from the school are here to answer your questions.
I think you might be on mute.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Rashiki Kirkendall, and I serve as principal of Roots Public Charter School. I am joined by Kebiana Holmes, our office and data manager, also Dr. Jesse Sharp, who's our board chair, as well as, I'm not sure if another board member, Mr. Cameron Poles, is here or not. I want to thank you, Dr. Walker Davis, Chairwoman Cruzy, and the entire DCPSB for allowing us the opportunity to address the 2024 mystery caller results and the open enrollment policies practiced at Roots PCS. At Roots, we do have an open enrollment policy. We adhere to the best practices and protocols set forth by my school DC, DCPCSB, as well as the Office of Human Rights. At the heart of the matter is the lack of an emerging multilingual learner program and Roots staff asking for documentation that could discourage EML students from applying to the school. So first, I'd like to state for the record that throughout our 25 years, Roots has never discriminated based on an applicant's race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, identification, or language, or anyone with special needs prior to enrollment. And this is stated in our brochures as well as on our website. Instead, our goal is to obtain information to serve students better and address the needs so that we are equipped to impact student learning and achievement. So Roots PCS, I received mystery calls on 2 occasions, as you just heard, and the caller was greeted by a staff person who were incapable of effectively articulating our current enrollment practices. On a typical day at Roots, the office consists of myself as the principal, as well as Kebiana Holmes, who's the office and data manager. If there's a day when one or both of us are out of the office or away from the phones, or away from our desk, rather, the phones may be covered by other personnel in the building. And we believe this is what happened on those 2 occasions that neither of us recall having that documented conversation with the mystery caller. The person who answered the call was not well versed in our policies, and for that, I will take full responsibility. As the school's leader, I must ensure that all personnel are made aware of our current school-wide policies and protocols and are able to effectively articulate them accordingly. Therefore, going forward, we are committed to participating, we as in Kebiana and myself, and staff when they're available, trainings and workshops related to current open enrollment policies and protocols that are offered either through OSCE or DCPSB, the first one being tomorrow. We're also going to make sure that the information that we receive as front office, frontline personnel, disseminate this information throughout all staff in the building and update our trainings and our PDs to make sure that we're all well-versed. Everyone in the building is well-versed, as well as making sure that there is, similar to the other schools, a fact sheet at the front desk, taped to the front desk, so we're all speaking the same language with the do's and the don'ts, as well as an I Speak card that's available for anyone in the building that may have to answer the phone during either myself or Kibiana's absence. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Kuykendall. And I want to also begin by thanking you for your patience in coming back this meeting after a long delay in the last very interesting and very important board meeting, but that went a long time. And I know it was pretty late in the evening once we finally notified you that we would be rescheduling this part of the agenda. Other board members, do we have questions for the Roots team this evening?
Won't repeat what I've said previously. I assume you've heard the prior discussions. It's important that every person get training on this. You never know who's going to be asked to step in if the two of you aren't available to answer the phone. And I would urge that people be trained not only in what to say, but what not to say.
Thank you.
This is really, really important. We don't want this to happen again.
I agree. We will ensure that everyone is trained.
Thank you.
Board members, if I have no further questions, I'll invite a motion.
I move to approve the issuance of a notice of concern to Roots Public Charter School.
Second.
Thank you, Secretary Adamafanian.
Absolutely. Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Thank you, Roots.
Thank you. Thanks again.
For our final mystery caller notice of concern for the evening, Tricia will introduce the notice for Digital Pioneers Public Charter School. For that, I would like to invite representatives from the school to join us. Michelle Ashton or Lena Noka Blanchard, excuse me.
DC PCSB staff recommend that its board issue a notice of concern to Digital Pioneers Public Charter School for failing the Mystery Caller initiative. Digital Pioneers Public Charter School provided non-compliant responses in both rounds of this year's initiative. During both calls, the staff member was unaware of the school's obligation to provide specialized programming for emerging multilingual learners and expressed that Digital Pioneers Public Charter School does not have an emerging multilingual learner program. Further, during the second call, the staff member also expressed that the school primarily serves a certain type of student. Representatives from the school are here to answer your questions.
You guys hear me?
We hear you. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's Michelle. And while I was not supposed to be on that last meeting, I was on the last meeting all the way to the end of the night, just listening and learning, and want to thank the board and the staff for really just persisting through, particularly board on your volunteer job. That was a lot. But thank you. That being said, I do want to just read a statement on behalf of myself and our vice chair. One is, and I've listened to all of the previous calls, all of the previous comments. And so what I would say is we absolutely do take this seriously. We strive at DPA to be an all means all school. In fact, our leaders participate in a national fellowship that is called All Means All, which is a commitment to serve all students. And it's the thing that I say as I'm recruiting every board member, teacher, team member, is that we are a school that is committed to all, and all really does mean all. I want to also just echo that we do not limit or discourage enrollment based on students' race, color, religion, national origin, language spoken, measures of achievement, or status with special needs or emerging in EML scholar. Specifically, our enrollment process, when a family calls about enrollment, we do not ask for IEPs or 504 access scores or proof of citizenship. That is all very specifically outlined. We do have a translator available for families with limited English proficiency for ease of communication. Our front office and our enrollment team affirms every time that we have quality seats available for special ed and L, and as families inquire about it, we are very specific in addressing that, making sure that they know that we will accept all students and that they should go through the My School DC process. And in fact, we offer for a member of our team, particularly our SPED L coordinator, to follow up and to reach directly back out to parents. We don't say, hey, call us back. We actually will put them in touch with our SPED coordinator or our SPED director to really make sure that they have knowledge of the breadth of services that are available for our scholars. And in fact, in this incident, our front office team mistakenly attempted to outline the services that we provide to our families. But I think as Board Member Wright said, the answer to do we have an EML program is yes. And she did not say that. So that was inappropriate. She should have said yes, and she should be more aware of the services, and she also should have offered the caller and any family the option for us to reach back out with even further information about the breadth of services. I would say if there was one school that would not get a vote of concern from this board, it would be this one, given what I just heard in the previous examples. However, we will accept the feedback. I think one is I do not believe that we created an exclusion. We did not request more information. We did not ask for proof of citizenship. We did not say go to another school. In fact, we said, please apply through My School DC, but we did not say, yes, we have an EML program. And so for the bottom line, we can accept that feedback. There is always room for us to approve, and it does not fall on us the importance of this issue, not just for DPA, but for the city and for the charter sector. And so again, that's why we're willing to take the feedback. And just in terms of what we have done, our whole operations team, and I should specifically say, this is the person who answered this call has been with us from the beginning, has passed the calls for 6 years. I should also echo that in every one of the calls, every one of the concerns that was issued, those schools had 15 plus years, and we're just finishing up our 6th year. It's the same person who has answered, and she has been trained and has very specifically been trained around, we accept all students and everyone must apply through My School DC. But again, acknowledging that she did not specifically say yes to answer the question around an EML program. That being said, our whole enrollment team has weekly calls to discuss the enrollment process. And the information is posted at the front desk. I appreciate the feedback around it should also include what not to say. Specifically, the acknowledgement that we are obligated to provide a specialized program for EML students. And our team has participated in training, will participate in the training tomorrow. And I guess at the end of the day, this is at the core of our value for our whole team to be able to communicate the right information, values, and mindsets. And we are committed to not just answering mystery callers, but being able to serve all students in the city, because we think that makes our school special, unique, and it's what we signed in terms of our charter contract. With that, I said, again, we accept the feedback. There's always room for us to improve. And if the board was so inclined not to issue a notice of concern, we would welcome that. With that, we will open it up for questions. Unless, actually, Ms. Blanchard, would you want to add something? Ms. Blanchard is our vice chair.
I'm happy to. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name's Orlina Walker Blanchard. I am a founding board member of DPA. I have served as an executive member of the board since its inception. This is it's ironic in that I am an immigrant. I'm a citizen of 4 countries. My life's work is in equity and inclusion, including legislation to ensure that there are no barriers to entry for public schools for children from a discriminatory perspective. And so the irony of being here is my position at DPA on the board is really because of my personal and professional commitment to inclusion and knowing that Digital Pioneers Academy exists to ensure that there are no barriers to entry for all children, and we serve all children. The one thing that I wanted to assure you is, as a representative of the board, we take very seriously that a flag has been raised, that there is something we can learn from, and that we need to remedy, and we need to ensure it doesn't happen in future. But in listening to all the presentations and conversations that's happened, I do want to acknowledge, as somebody who does marketing and communications for a living, I heard the vice chair actually say, and focus on and underscore perception and culture is as important as the measures we put in place to ensure that we're serving all. And so just wanted to reassure you and reinforce that we understand that the perception of not serving all and not being open to all is equally as detrimental as anything that would stand in the way. And so just wanted to make sure that you understand we're fully committed to making sure that the communication training is as thorough as it needs to be. And I will say, to repeat what the vice chair said, that we will make sure people know what to say as well as what not to say, so that the perception is accurate that we do serve all at DPA. Thank you.
Ms. Shea and Vice Chair Blanchard, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you also, Ms. Shea, in beginning for having sat through the entire last board meeting. It was an important one. And for your I'm sorry that it took us as long as we did to let you know that we would be moving this item to this meeting's agenda. So thank you for your patience and for coming back again tonight. Board members, do we have additional questions for the Digital Pioneers team? Please, Jim. I think you're on mute.
Ms. Ashton, I'm concerned that you don't appreciate the seriousness of what happened here. This is not a close case for me. There is something, it's not only what the recipient of the call didn't say, it's what she did say. The information we've received from the staff says this. The staff member then informed the caller that the school does not really have any Spanish-speaking students, and that is why the school does not have a program. The staff member said the school mainly serves students in wards 7 and 8 who are at-risk African-American students. The staff member directed the caller to my school DC and informed the caller that they would need to provide proof of residency to apply to the school. That just sounds to me like we don't have students like yours here. That's a problem. That's a big problem. There's something that frankly strikes me as begrudging about your acceptance of what's being proposed here. I'd like to hear you address what it was that the staff member said there. We don't have Spanish-speaking students here. We serve Ward 7 and Ward 8 African Americans. You serve all students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mr. Sandman, I really apologize if if my acceptance and my acknowledgement and what I communicated as a commitment was not received at all. And so I want to acknowledge absolutely that our team member who answered this and anyone who answers this can improve, should improve, and has improved. And we've gone through the training. We have gone through the steps around what is required for enrollment, etc. I don't even want to defend what was said. I appreciate what you are pointing out. Here's where I would like some help, and I think it would help the sector, because when I read the policy, I think that we can, and this is why there's training around what one says that could be, and I think this is what Ms. Blanchard said, is perception and versus reality. I think that we can do better related to that. And what I believe at the heart of the woman who helped found our school, who answered this call, I think she was very specifically stating just the facts of who we serve, not that we wouldn't be willing to serve all students. That's what I believe is in her heart. I do not believe, I think as you suggested, that she was intending to say that's all who we serve. I think it was more factual, but either way, it's feedback for us. And I really do hope that you do not think that I am not taking this seriously. With 25 years in this work, I am very aware of all of the concerns that charters have to fight every single day. And that's why, again, I acknowledge it. We're putting in the work, but I really do hope that you hear the sincerity in that.
So, Michelle, I have to I have to echo and second, I guess, both what Jim is saying. Like, at the end of the day, regardless of the intent and what was, what about this person, somebody picked up the phone and gave a message that you all don't accept students. And whether or not the LEA has the program, has to set it up once the enrollment comes, is not the parent's issue. It is the LEA's job. And it goes back to what I just said to whichever school 2 calls ago. The answer is yes, right? If that means that June 30th, you then got to set up an entire program, which you should be ready to do anyway, because that's also a requirement of the charter, is to say in this case, like, we missed it. And what I think I'm hearing, particularly, and what I think you hear Jim saying as well, is there's sort of like a defensiveness, like, yeah, we may have messed up. We might accept your notice. We might not. The reality is that when someone called, regardless of who it was, they got a message that said some pretty stark things to them. And in the end, regardless of intent, sent a message that they were not welcome at that school. We are public schools that get public funding. And for all the reasons that you just enunciated, right, or you just articulated, excuse me, we know our responsibility. And regardless of who we serve majority of, we've got to be ready to serve everybody at any time. And that just needs to be the message. Like, nothing, for me, this one is, as a former school leader, this one is really frustrating because it is simple. We are a public school open to every child, and you're not doing us a favor by accepting our notice of concern. Like, we don't want to have to give it. We want this mystery caller to be an easy thing that all of our LEAs do, period. And that's just it. And so, while I think we know who you are as a school leader, in this case, your LEA messed up. Whoever it is, I don't care if she was founding, if she started yesterday, the message that the parent received said, you're not welcome at our school. And not only that, just the messaging behind it also just sent additional red flags that we just should not be saying to any parent. We should be saying, absolutely, come to our school, apply, we're happy to serve you. For me, that's what the script should say. I don't care who that is the script. Absolutely. Come to whatever our school. And so I also feel, I mean, it's not a debate at the end of the day, but I want to also put on record that I hear what I also heard what Jim articulated as well, which is just a level of kind of like, yeah, we didn't really mean it. That wasn't the message that was sent. And in our country and in our city, that's not who we are. And I don't think that's what your LEA represents. And so in this case, I think it should just be, we will do better and we will make sure. I don't think it's anything to defend.
Board members, if no further questions, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the issuance of a notice of concern to Digital Pioneers Public Charter School.
Second.
Thank you, Secretary Adamathanian. Would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Yes, Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Aye.
I am an aye as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Digital Pioneers. Next on our agenda are charter reviews. Our first charter review is of DC Bilingual Public Charter School. For that, I will yield the floor to Andres Rojas Suarez, Specialist of School Quality and Evaluation. And I'd also like to invite representatives from the school to provide remarks. Daniela Anello, Eleni McCabe, Ina Borjas, Nadia Ramey, and Naomi DeVoe.
Good evening. My name is Andres Rojas Suarez. I'm a senior specialist in the School Performance Department. Tonight, the board will vote on the charter review and continuance of DC Bilingual Public Charter School, Two Rivers Public Charter School, and Meridian Public Charter School. I will present the staff recommendation for DC Bilingual Public Charter School, and Gina Lucchese will present the staff recommendations for Two Rivers and Meridian Public Charter Schools. The following charter review standard applies to each school. The School Reform Act stipulates that DC PCSB shall review a school's charter at least once every 5 years. As part of this review, DC PCSB must determine whether the school committed a violation of applicable law or material violation of the conditions, terms, standards, or procedures set forth in its charter, including violations relating to the education of children with disabilities, and whether the school failed to meet the goals and student academic achievement expectations set forth in its charter. If DC PCSB determines that a school has committed a violation of applicable law or a material violation of the terms of its charter, or has not met its goals, the board may, at its discretion, revoke the school's charter or grant the school a conditional continuance. Additionally, there is a fiscal component to the charter review. Per the School Reform Act, the board is required to revoke a school's charter if it determines that the school has engaged in a pattern of non-adherence to generally accepted accounting principles, has engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, or is no longer economically viable. Each school under review adopted the Performance Management Framework, or PMF, as its charter goals and committed to earning an average PMF score of at least 50% throughout this review period. However, given the disruption in schooling and data collection during the COVID-19 pandemic and DCPCSB's PMF revision efforts, DCPCSB only published PMF outcomes for school year 2018-19. Further, our COVID-19 impact policy, DCPCSB did not assess goal attainment for school years 2019-20, 2020-21, or 2021-22. Consequently, for this review period, we assessed charter goals performance using 2018-19 PMF outcomes and 2022-23 goal attainment pathway performances as outlined in our charter goals policy. We also assessed mission-specific goal attainment in both school years if the school adopted a mission-specific goal. DC Bilingual Public Charter School is up for its 20-year review. The school educates 579 students in grades pre-kindergarten 3 through 5 at a single campus located in Ward 5. In addition to adopting the PMF as its charter goals, DC Bilingual Public Charter School adopted one mission-specific goal, measuring students' proficiency in science. DC Bilingual Public Charter School met its charter goals, earning an 81.4% on the PMF in school year 2018-19, and meeting a goal attainment pathway per the charter goals policy in school year 2022-23. The school met the transitional goals pathway by exceeding the state average for all 7 transitional goals measures. The school also met its mission-specific goal by exceeding the goal targets in school year 18-19 and school year 2022-23. DCPCSB staff determined the school has not committed a violation of law or a material violation of its charter, has adhered to generally accepted accounting principles, has not engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, and is economically viable. Based on these findings, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board vote to continue DC Bilingual Public Charter Schools charter. DC Bilingual Public Charter School representatives are available to speak about the school's performance over the past 5 years and to answer the board's questions.
Welcome and congratulations, DC Bilingual.
Hello, hello, Public Charter School Board members and Dr. Michelle Walker-Davis. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you on behalf of the DC Bilingual community today. My name is Daniela Anello, and I am DC Bilingual's head of school. Joining me and speaking today with me are our school's co-principals, Eleni McCabe and Ina Borjas, and our board chair, Nadia Remy. We're also accompanied by other members of our school staff, caregiver community members, and members of our board. I have had the pleasure of being part of the DC Bilingual community for the past 15 years. And during this time, we have seen tremendous growth of our school's programs and academic achievement for all students. As the review process has demonstrated, DC Bilingual currently has met all of its charter requirements and looks forward to continuing to work on serving our students in the best way possible. Our school is in the middle of its school growth and expansion plan, and with the adoption of the equitable access preference, one of our school's main priorities is to ensure that our school is serving all students in the best way possible. During the recent lottery season, our school received 1,500 applications. Following the matching of available spots, we currently have 1,410 students on our waiting list. With such overwhelming demand, our dedication remains steadfast, which is to provide comprehensive education to every single student that we serve. We aim to nurture academic achievement, emotional well-being, and active participation in our diverse educational programs, covering arts, nutrition, and wellness to the best of our ability. To follow, our co-principals and board chair will share the various ways in which we are looking forward to continuing to ensure a successful path forward for all students that we serve now and look forward to serving in the near future. Our co-principal, Eleni McCabe, will speak next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eleni McCabe. I'm one of the co-principals at DC Bilingual Public Charter School. I've been at DC Bilingual for 13 years. I began as a teacher there, and I was an instructional coach for many years before doing my principal training program. One of the things that I'm most proud of at DC Bilingual is our science program, which you can see reflected in our mission-specific goal. Science at DC Bilingual is taught completely in Spanish from the time the students are in pre-K 3. Our students receive science instruction for a quarter of their instructional time throughout their time at DC Bilingual. And as you can see in our mission-specific goal, our students perform far above the state average on that test that they take in 5th grade. I'm also very proud of our scores on the QSR, in which unannounced observers come to observe the quality of our teaching staff. They came this year, I think, in the first month of school. And despite that, we scored with 94% proficient or advanced in classroom environment and 86 proficient or advanced in instruction. And I look forward to continuing to have those scores remain high and to our teaching quality to remain high in both English and Spanish as we continue to grow and expand our teaching staff. Thank you. And I would like to introduce my co-principal, Ina Borjas.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ina Borjas, and like Eleni said, I was a teacher. I've been at DC Bilingual for the past 10 years as well. I was a teacher, then I was an instructional coach and assistant principal until I became a principal. One of the things I'm most proud of as a school, as indicated in our report, that fills me with so much pride is our standing class scores in classroom organization and emotional support. As you all know, this is our big observations for our pre-K programs. And we've been scoring really high and keep growing every year.
Give her a moment to hopefully let that connection restore.
While we wait for Ina to come back, Nadia, would you like to speak?
Sure. Yep, I'll take care. So if everyone can hear me okay. Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for this opportunity. I'm Nadia Ramey. I am the DC Bilingual's board chair. I've been a member of the community for almost 10 years now, as a parent and as a very proud member of the board. On behalf of our board of directors, I want to share that we are extremely proud of our school community for the gains and achievements they've made, especially over the last 5 years. But I'm especially proud of our leadership team. The team that you see here has done a tremendous job in supporting our students and supporting our achievements over these years. And to them, I give a great deal of the credit for this work. As a board and as a board member, one of our highest priorities is ensuring that we hold our head of school accountable. And we do that really by aligning our head of school goals as well as our board goals to ensure that we have alignment across the school and through our school community as well. We also recognize that, there are lots of things that have happened in the last 5 years, including COVID. And again, want to commend that our community has really fought hard to maintain our culture and to maintain, where we are in terms of supporting our students and their leadership. I don't know if I was able to get back on. I can hand it back to her.
I think we can open for questions. If any of the board members have questions for us, we're ready for you.
I want to begin by congratulating this team. Thanking you for your presentation tonight. I think I was on this board 5 years ago when we voted on 15-year review, and it's hard to believe how much time has passed. It's also, I enjoyed reading through the 20-year report. I'd like to just maybe kick off with one of the last, I'm almost laughing as I begin saying it, knowing that you've been through a big construction project in the pandemic. But tell me about the last 5 years. What stands out for you as you gone through this process with the PCSB staff to review your goals and for this review? Can you share with us a bit there?
Yes, I can start, and if Eleni or Nadia, if you want to chime in with any of your perspectives on this. It's been quite a whirlwind. We were asked in 2019 to consider expansion, and that was before COVID, and we built this beautiful plan. And then we had our board of directors really support the work that we needed to do step by step in order to ensure that the green lighting plan was followed in the way that we designed for it to be the best suited for the community, based on all of the criteria we knew we needed to get right before advancing to the next stage. And everything advanced and advanced and advanced. And then we had COVID happen as we were embarking on the full expansion construction project. I guess the blessing in disguise is that it was the loudest and craziest and most chaotic on our grounds during the time that most children were learning virtually. And so I guess that's silver lining, right? Like we happened to be in the middle of construction when our kids were learning from home. That being said, it was also the light at the end of the tunnel, so that when we were able to return back for in-person learning, the expansion was completed and we could truly celebrate and embrace the work that had been done to add 30,000 square feet. And just so everybody knows, we built the expansion and the space needed to be able to serve all of the kids when we are at full growth. So the idea is that we're currently in a bigger building than we need, quote unquote, although there's no such thing. We're still using every nook and cranny in the building. But as our school expands from pre-K all the way to grade 5, to have going from originally 2 classes per grade level to have 4 classes per grade level, the idea is that we already have the necessary spaces and classrooms needed to serve all kids. And our full expansion growth is to serve 712 students. Ina, you're back with us. I'm not sure if you wanted to finish up what you were saying. We're sorry we lost.
No, it's okay. There's no power in my neighborhood. Something happened and here we are. So I'm so sorry, everyone. But yeah, I don't know what I said or where was the last time you heard me, but I've been at DCB for 10 years. I've been a teacher, a coach, a coordinator. I've been all of it, a Spanish teacher. Yeah, that's my native language. But one of the things I'm most proud of is like, as indicated in our report, is our standing class scores in classroom organization and emotional support, where we've surpassed the district's average. And moving forward, one of the areas like I will keep focusing and further support our school is in instructional support, another class domain where we are very close to meeting the 4 points. And yeah, I am looking forward for any questions you have about this topic, but I think Nadia already spoke after me. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you and welcome back. I'm going to open it up for other board members.
Again, just echoing the sentiment from Chairwoman Cruzy. Congratulations on your 20-year review. I don't necessarily have any questions. I just want to acknowledge that DC Bilingual is always interesting for me, as the original building was where I went to elementary school. So just to hear the good work continue. And also, I drove by the building today and I was like, what was this? This is great. This is not what it looked like, but just kudos to you all for the work that you do in the building every day and keeping the spirit of that building, that very special place to me, alive. So well done.
Thank you so much for your comment. And I just want to invite you to come see a particular part of the building, which is the historic timeline of the school and the building's use. And so we date it back to early settlers all the way through Keene Elementary and then the former Cap School. So we have a historic timeline that you very much would enjoy. So come by, let me know when.
I need to drink some water. I don't know why that's so emotional to me. Thank you. I absolutely will. That school really, really has a special place in my heart. So.
Well, that's wonderful. Congratulations, DC Bilingual. 20 years is no easy feat. So congratulations. As you think about what's next for you all in these next kind of 5 years, I'd love to hear from you, Daniela, as head, like what it is that you're looking forward to winning on, what it is you want to do. And then also hear from you, Nadia, about the board's role in this. Right now, you've got a mature LEA here, 20 years in, you've got a school leader, 15 years in. Like, what are you guys thinking about too over these next iteration before your next 5 years? I'd love to hear from both of you.
Thank you so much. I can get us started and maybe Nadia, you can add on. The areas that we're continually learning. So just so you know, I think one of the things that makes our team so committed to the work is that we find ourselves in learning mode all the time. So this idea that I may be there, have been there for 15 years and our co-principals for 10, 12 years, but every year feels brand new again because every child is the new students and the challenges and the parents and the things that show up as really important are new. I'm not new. They're always changing. They're always different. There's like some similarities, but there's a lot of uniqueness to each individual family and each individual child. And so we're constantly trying to figure it out. We're constantly looking at students as individually as we can and addressing what's working, what's not working, and how to figure it out better. So as I mentioned, equitable access preference is fairly new for us. And it's shown up with a really big need for us to look at families holistically. It's not just what the child needs. It's not just where they're ranking in their very socio-emotional learning trajectory or math or reading or science or anything. There's like many more layers to a holistic approach to education. And some of it has to do with attendance, and some of it has to do with transportation, and some of it has to do with how to support immigration status. And so there are many aspects to serving a whole child that we haven't had to think about in that way before. And so I personally feel a strong commitment to do more for students holistically and to think about the whole family and how are we able to really identify the resources that are already available in the city, because there's so many available resources, but how can we play a bigger role in identifying family needs and matching them to family services that are already available. And if they're not available, what is our responsibility to find the available resources that will benefit the full family to being able to have successful experience in the school? Nadia?
Yeah, I would definitely echo what you're saying, Daniela, about our community is changing. It's changing constantly, and we've seen that over the years, and I think we'll continue to see that. A lot of where I see us going in the next 5 years is that we started the construction, we started the work, and while the building is done, we still have a lot to do inside the building. We still have a big focus on our community, on our leadership team, on our caregivers, on our non-instructional staff, on everyone that fills that building and the rest of the families that will continue to fill it until we get to capacity. That's still a big priority for us over the next several years to ensure that we're responsibly growing, that we're continuing to do it at a pace that works for us, and that we're continuing to care for all of the individuals that enter this beautiful new building that we have. We want the inside to feel just as beautiful as the outside.
If I have no further questions or comments from board members, I will entertain a motion.
I move to continue the charter of DC Bilingual Public Charter School.
Second.
Thank you. Secretary Adama Fanyan, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Yes. Chairwoman Cruzy?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman?
Aye.
Treasurer Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty?
Aye, and congratulations.
Board Member Rodriguez?
Aye.
And I'm an enthusiastic, nostalgic aye. Very good.
Congratulations, DC Bilingual.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Our next charter review is of Two Rivers Public Charter School. I want to note for my colleagues on the dais, those in the virtual space and the public, that Chair Cruzy has recused herself from participating in board action taken regarding this LEA. Chair Cruzy has left the room, and I now yield the floor to Gina Lucchese, Senior Specialist, School Quality and Evaluation.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Gina Lucchese, and I'm a Senior Specialist in the School Performance Department, and I will present the staff recommendations for the charter reviews of Two Rivers Public Charter School and Meridian Public Charter School. Two Rivers Public Charter School is up for its 20-year review. The school educates 993 students in grades pre-kindergarten 3 through 8 at 3 campuses located in wards 5 and 6. Now I will discuss each campus's goal attainment. Two Rivers 4th Street campus met its charter goals, earning 72.3% on the PMF in school year 2018-19 and meeting a goal attainment pathway per the charter goals policy in school year 22-23. Two Rivers Young Elementary School campus met its charter goals by earning 63.2% on the PMF in school year 2018-19 and meeting a goal attainment pathway in school year 22-23. DC PCSB did not render a goals determination for Two Rivers Young Middle School campus because it opened in school year 2020-21 and has only 1 year of academic goal attainment data at the time of this review. Per the PMF as goals policy, a new campus must have at least 2 years of PMF scores or its equivalent to be evaluated on student academic achievement expectations. DC PCSB staff determined that the school has not committed a violation of law or a material violation of its charter, has adhered to generally accepted accounting principles, has not engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, and is economically viable. Based on these findings, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board vote to continue Two Rivers Public Charter Schools charter. Two Rivers Public Charter School representatives are available to speak about the school's performance over the past 5 years and to answer the board's questions.
I'd like to ask the Two Rivers representatives to join us. Belisha Reeves and Akila James, welcome.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear from you.
So thank you, Madam Chairman, and to all the Public Charter School Board board members, Dr. Walker Davis. Thank you to the review committee for such a thorough report of Two Rivers and the fidelity at which we are living out our charter, mission, and goal for the academic, social, and emotional success of our students and families. I am joined tonight by our Chief Academic Officer, Aquila James, and I believe our board chair, Greg Tremo, but I'm not sure if he's online or via dial-in. It has been an honor to serve this great community for the last 9 months as its executive director. The scholarly habits and core values of TR, along with our EL education model for expeditionary learning, are some of the foundational factors that drew me to this network to serve. With the best, I would say, staffing team on this side of the Mississippi, we are comprised of founding teachers, some of whom have now grown up in TR to become TR leaders, students and families who are committed to our hands-on learning and outdoor experiences for students that can't be contained in the walls of a school building when you live and learn in the heart of DC. It has been a joy for us to focus this year really on with all of our transitions on building relationships, culture, and crew within our network. Our focus on responsive classroom management and restorative practices have truly elevated our academic settings on a deeper level. We have been able to focus on maintaining the high performance obtained in the classroom environment, our instructional domains, and the core content areas at our elementary school campuses and our middle school. The intentional integration of the arts also remain a pivotal part of our programming, giving students a well-rounded educational experience from the time they walk into our doors at the age of 3 through 8th grade. We are continuing to create a one continuous journey that exceeds the state averages coming out of COVID. Like several other charters in our area, we also have places where we are pushing for higher and deeper levels, whether it be in our math achievement in our upper and elementary schools, as well as in ELA. The improvements have been seen in our appeal of the initial QSR for our middle school in the spring in comparison to the fall. And this is just the beginning. We know that we are in a growth mindset. With the creation of our new strategic plan for the next 3 years, we will be centered on accelerating our academic growth and achievement, strengthening our culture and support for our entire community around crew, and building the operational and financial systems that are going to sustain TR for another 20 years. I am truly confident that we will use this renewal to be a beacon of light that PCSB can shine as an example of what a charter education can do for students in DC. As we head into our 20th year of educating students from all of our wards, it is with deep gratitude that we received this committee's recommendation to continue Two Rivers Charter, and our team and I are welcome to answer any of your questions that you may have at this time.
I want to first congratulate the Two Rivers community, 20 years, awesome. Thank you for all you all have done over the last 2 decades for DC's kids, and so much appreciation there.
Thank you.
To kind of jump in, curious to hear about specifically Two Rivers demonstrated some concerning out-of-school suspension rates for students in grades 6 through 8 in school years 2019 through 2020 and 2021 through 2022 and through the 2022 to 23 school year. In school year 2022 and to 2023, over a quarter of students in grades 6 through 8 received an out-of-school suspension, including over 1/3 of at-risk students and 4 in 10 students with disabilities. As we know, it is critically important that students are present in the classroom in order for learning to occur. So would love to hear what strategies you plan or have began implementing and that you will focus on going forward in order to reduce the out-of-school suspension rates at the middle school campus.
So one of the biggest terms that I would probably use to describe what the future looks like for TR and what we have actually started implementing this year is transitions. Having the right people, we call it on the boat. I know some people use the rest, but we are a boat school. In the right seat and pointing in the right direction is key. And so with our new leadership team that is now at the middle school specifically, as well as the support of our 2 elementary schools that are feeding into, the expectations of what the difference between elementary and middle school is going to be key. And then really training both the teachers and the leadership around how we build relationships with kids so that in our crew model, every student has an adult that they are associated with that basically becomes their advocate in their crew. And each day, those students know that that teacher, that admin is going to have my back, regardless of what I do through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so we have partnered with Restore DC for our teaching staff and really implementing with fidelity our restorative justice practices. We have talked and discussed a lot with our staff what those restorative circles look like. We have folks who have been trained in them and are not just our counselors, but also our leadership teams so that they can be properly implemented. And when we talk about logical consequences for actions, there are tons of conversations that are happening at Two Rivers in the middle school that really get to the root of why students' behavior. Every behavior is a message, right? And so those numbers that you just talked about are huge. And we want to acknowledge that that is not in any way, shape, or form where we want to be or where we are right now or going in the future. And so when we talk about that new strategic plan, really looking at building that second goal around our culture and climate of TR, that is why that is there and definitely at the top of our lens in terms of the strategies that we're going to be implementing. Our responsive classroom really, I think, sings in the elementary campuses, and what that looks like at the middle school level just really and truly needed to be amped up.
Thank you.
No problem.
Congratulations on your 20 years. I think Board Member Wright said it to another school. It's certainly no easy feat. So congratulations to you all. I wanted to talk a little bit about your math proficiency and your work around focusing on that and your strategies that you have in terms of improving that. What are your overall thoughts around your math proficiency?
So our math proficiency is probably our greatest area of growth, or growth area, I would say, from based on our data in the review, as well as our scores in the last year. And even pre-COVID, there were like in the middle school areas, not necessarily in elementary. And so one of the strategies that we have really talked about, and by all means, our CEO can chime in, has been getting the right curriculum and strategies for training in the hands of our staff. Prior to us both actually arriving at TR, there were a lot of teacher-generated content that did not necessarily, let's say, meet grade level standards across math curriculum consistently. So it's not that it didn't all the time, but we really and truly took that data and the information that we were given and looked at how is it that we can improve this consistently across the board for all students and for all staff members. And so ensuring that everyone is on the same page about the ELA curriculum, everyone is on the same page about the math curriculum that we are looking at for each grade level, and then providing the resources and the training for our staff. We sent staff to training last summer. We are sending staff to trainings this summer. We have partnered with our EL math partners who are using the curriculum and training our staff, not only just the staff, but also our leadership. When we think about all the different ways that math can show up, both from a challenge as a former math teacher myself, right, teacher, it is very important that students see math applied. And so at our community meetings on Wednesday for elementary and the middle school, we have everything from a math magical wizard, a math magical fairy, and a math night. Really trying to emphasize on a weekly basis, here are the word problems for our students to complete and get challenged by. There are incentives for them to complete these challenges as a group, as a crew, solving them, or individually, or at home with their families. And so we are really wanting to make sure that math is doable for all students, and that with the right support, they can definitely be successful, not only on our standardized tests, but on all of the standards that they have to master for middle school.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Nick?
Great. Alicia, team, it's fantastic to see you, Alicia. Long time.
I know.
You in this role. Never got to congratulate you for taking it on, but it was wonderful to hear the news. And congratulations on all the, I think, strong data that I think we see across the board in a lot of different places. I think I'd love to just ask a little bit more about the middle school and just sort of say, I mean, I think my thought looking at the data was just sort of, you know, if the middle school hadn't changed locations and sort of started its clock over, right? I wonder what the sort of results would look like pulled out separately now. And of course, that's a thing to look at 5 years from now for sure. And so if you think about like, what's the plan for now for 5 years? We think about the middle school as being distinct, newer, all these things. Would love to just hear any reflections you have about what improvement can and should look like there.
So right now, one of the biggest improvement candidates I think we can expect are not only in the data from a math and an ELA standpoint, but in a reduction of the field. What we have had parents and students say this school year is how not only it's like, it is definitely school. Like we have work to do. Kids are learning. Families are excited when they are walking their kids to the elementary school through the middle school parking lot about what they're seeing, whether it's the cheers activities. So there's a cheerleading team. Our soccer team won the soccer league that they were in, and our girls won their basketball league. There are activities as well as culture building. We call it Caught in the Act, CIAs, that students are really getting excited about academically as well as non-academic opportunities for them to shine. And so when you build a culture that distinguishes what it feels like to be a middle schooler at TR versus just being an elementary school student, they are establishing their own identity. And so we are going to continue to positively influence those pieces of the middle school identity from an academic standpoint. We celebrate our Crewbies, because we are Crewbies of the month, and recognize them at community meetings so that they also know what it means to be recognized in a way positive academic and be supported by their classmates in front of their entire grade or even in front of the entire middle school. I think the other piece that I would say in the trajectory of TR is for the middle school specifically is also we have one of the few, I think, if not the only, My High School Search program where we have an academic counselor on staff who helps our students in 8th grade, starting in 7th actually, really get prepared for their high school experience. She, in class time has been set aside in crew for her to really help them through that application process, whether they are applying to other application schools, charter schools, private schools, or DC public schools for high school. And it is a rarity that the level of communications we've heard from families, as well as the students in terms of the process, the level of confidence that it gives them to have that process be walked through with them and then presented in a way that they recognize the choices that they have and the options. And so that is something I think is going to continue to grow and even change in terms of all of the options and where our kids end up going for high school. And that's something to be excited about as well.
Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to continue the charter of Two Rivers Public Charter School.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Chairman Salmon,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez, pardon me.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Congratulations, Two Rivers.
Congratulations.
Rivers, keep doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Looking forward to all the good stuff.
Same here. Have a good evening.
You too. Could someone please retrieve Leah?
She's coming.
I want to note for the record again that Leah was recused from that last vote.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Sandman. The final LEA up for review tonight is Meridian Public Charter School, and for that, I will yield the floor to Gina Lucchese, Senior Specialist of School Quality and Evaluation. And I'd also like to invite representatives from the school to provide remarks. Matthew McCrae, DeRay Stevens, Nicole Blair Barze, Steve Piercy, Mamia Richards, Helda Morad, and Keith Collins.
Thank you. Meridian Public Charter School is up for its 25-year review. The school educates 624 students in grades pre-kindergarten 3 through 8 at a single campus located in Ward 1. Meridian Public Charter School met its charter goals, earning 58.4% on the PMF in school year 2018-19 and meeting a goal attainment pathway per the charter goals policy in school year 2022-23. The school met the transitional goals pathway by exceeding the state average in 4 of 7 transitional goals measures and improving in the remaining 3 measures from school year 21-22 to school year 22-23. DC PCSB staff determined the school has not committed a violation of law or a material violation of its charter, has adhered to generally accepted accounting principles, has not engaged in a pattern of fiscal mismanagement, and is economically viable. Based on these findings, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board vote to continue Meridian Public Charter School's charter. Meridian Public Charter School representatives are available to speak about the school's performance over the past 5 years and to answer the board's questions.
Welcome, Meridian School Community. Do we have a few more board members joining?
Good evening. I know that a few of our board members were having a bit of a hard time getting on. I see our middle school principal, Nicole Blair Barze, even though her name says DeRay Stevens for some reason. We'll fix that. And I think our board chair is having a bit of a hard time getting on. But if he's able to join, of course, he'll join when he can.
Okay, sometimes it takes a moment. They have to keep an eye out for the invite to move up to panelist.
Okay. All right. I have a brief presentation that I wanted to share with the board. Good evening again, everybody. My name is Matthew McCrae. I'm Meridian's proud head of school. I wanted to share a little bit about Meridian at our 25-year review hearing, and in particular, the last 5 years. So Meridian was founded an incredible 25 years ago by a committed group of community leaders. And I like to share this because one of our board members has been on the board the entire 25 years. That sounds unusual. It's not unusual. He's the only one on the board that's been here, but we have a handful of staff members that have been with us for all 25 years as well. And that speaks to the kind of school that we like to operate. We're deeply committed to Ward 1. Both of our campuses sit in Ward 1. You can see nearly half of our students come from Ward 1. More than half of our students live within about a mile of one of our 2 campuses, and many of them walk to school every day. But even with that said, we pull in students from all over the city. We have a large contingent of students that come from Wards 7 and 8 that live right near the Congress Heights Metro Station and take the Green Line every day. Pull students from Wards 2 and 3, even 5 and 6 that come to Meridian every day for the excellent education that we provide. At our 20-year review, some of you were on the board at the 20-year review, and you may remember we received a continuance with conditions. This is a different Meridian that you're hearing about tonight. Our current performance is radically improved and stable. We met all of our charter goals we met our goals through each one of the 3 pathways available, not just one of them. I believe this is a proof point for charter school accountability. I think that the conditions placed on us worked at 20 years. I think that the accountability framework has done its job, and Meridian is a much stronger school because of it. Meridian in the last 5 years has seen radical population shifts. One of them that I wanted to share is our at-risk rate and how that's changed since before the pandemic. The red line that you see here is Meridian's at-risk rate for the last 5 years, and the blue line is DC's at-risk rate. So many of us know that DC's at-risk rate has increased. It has not increased nearly as much as Meridian. We started out in the low to mid 40s just before the pandemic. Our at-risk rate this year is in the mid 60s, significantly different population of students. And even though the population of students that we serve every day has changed radically, we've managed to produce what we believe are very promising academic results. Prior to the pandemic, you can see Meridian in the blue and the red here for ELA and then math, and then the city right here. While the city is still not at its pre-pandemic rates for ELA, Meridian has since exceeded its pre-pandemic rates of proficiency on PARCC and ELA. Still some work to do in math, but not only have we exceeded that, we've increased growth compared to the city and done it all with a very different population than we had before the pandemic. I'm also very proud of our QSR results. We exceeded the sector averages. You know this from our report in both components of the QSR. The table below demonstrates that we did so. I'm also very proud to share that Meridian was the only LEA that I'm aware of to receive all sufficient ratings in the QSR work sample review. All of our ELA samples and all of our math samples received that highest mark of distinction. Our access results have also been astounding. We have one of the highest EML populations in the city, with almost a third of our students speaking a language other than English at home. And we've significantly outperformed our peers, especially our peers in Ward 1. Here's our access growth results compared to the state, especially in the secondary framework where the median access growth was a 0. Meridian secondary access growth was a 75, placing us among the highest in secondary schools in the city. Wrapping up, a few other highlights of the last 5 years. This is a picture of the Bruce campus, our new permanent middle school campus. I say new, it's actually been with us for 4 years now. We acquired that in April of 2020, about 2 weeks into the pandemic. So I know Daniela spoke about the challenges of building a school during the pandemic. Acquiring a school in the middle of the pandemic was no easy feat either. We've consistently maintained our re-enrollment rate in the high 80s, significantly higher than the city average. A real proud point for us as well is that we're the first EL education partner school in DC that was not founded as an EL education school. And then finally, we've been awarded more than $5 million in competitive grants in school year 20. Most notably the 21st Century Learning Centers grant to fund our out-of-school learning time. At the time, that grant was the second largest in the city after DC Public Schools, which is an LEA a little bit bigger than Meridian. And then finally, the DC Literacy Grant, which will end next year, but has funded a lot of our literacy initiatives. Thank you again for the chance to talk. I'm happy to take any questions that the board might have at this time. And before the board, I just want to introduce our board chair, Steve Piercy, who's been able to hop on. Thanks, Steve.
I'd like to begin by congratulating the Meridian Public Charter School community on reaching 25 years, practically a generation, and thank you for your board service. Board members, and thank you for this presentation this evening. Board members, I want to open the floor for questions.
Congratulations on your 25 years, and also thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. Mr. McCray, when you talked, you spoke about having some work to do in the math proficiency. Can you talk about what your plans are around that, or what your strategies are with regards to math?
Absolutely. So, math has been a challenge for a lot of schools around the city, and that's not an excuse. It's just a recognition that alongside many of our peer schools, we have some work to do, and it's something that we've seen coming in our data for the last several years. So some of the shifts that we've made this year include a more heavy focus on high impact tutoring. High impact tutoring has been shown to be successful across schools in DC and across the country. At our middle school, I'll give Principal Barzy a moment to talk about how she's used her City Year Fellows inside of the math classrooms to support high impact tutoring.
Pleasant good evening, everyone. This is a pleasure to meet all of you here. Thank you for the opportunity to share the work that we're doing at Meridian. So part of the work that we're doing with City Year is that we have a City Year Fellow in each of our classrooms. They work closely with our academic math coach, and they help to provide differentiated instruction within the class through our high impact tutoring program at the school. And we are seeing gains. It's great when students are able to participate in station teaching between the City Year Fellow and the teacher on record in the classrooms.
And then we're also replicating high impact tutoring efforts in our elementary school. This year, we partnered with Teacher America for their Ignite Fellowship. A vast majority of our fifth graders are receiving daily high impact tutoring from our from TFA Ignite Fellows, and we've decided to focus that on math. So we've seen the fruits of the efforts in our internal map data this year. Growth is significantly higher in grades 3 through 8 than it was last year. We're hopeful that that shows up in our CAPE scores as well.
Hi, Meridian team. Congratulations on getting to this point. I'll ask you, as I asked the last LEA, as a mature LEA, and Mr. Piercy, I think I say your last name. I'd like to hear from you as well. But Matthew, as you think about the next 5 years and what's important as a 25-plus-year-old LEA, like what do you see as the primary focus for Meridian? And then, Stephen, how are you all thinking about it as a board with a mature LEA, a seasoned leader, et cetera? How are you thinking about supporting the school, and what are you focused on over your next few years?
I'll start and then I'll kick it over to Steve. So I've got 3 things that I would want to see from Meridian in the next 5 years. The first is earning the EL education credential and becoming a mature EL school like our partners at Two Rivers, who spoke just before us, like Capital City and the several other EL education credentialed schools across the city. From what we've been told by the EL education team, we're only a few years out from that. So our hope is that at our 30-year renewal, that'll be a really proud point for us to share with the board. The next is closing the achievement gap on CAPE this coming year and in the next few years. While we've done a lot of work on ELA, thanks to the investments of the literacy grant, like I mentioned in my last response, we have some work to do in math, but we're confident in the next 5 years we'll be able to continue to close, if not entirely close the gap against the city. And then the last one is growing enrollment at both of our campuses. The acquisition of the middle school 4 years ago opened up quite a bit of space for us. We have managed to grow middle school enrollment from around 150 students in school year 1920 to over 200 now. And we still have physical space in that campus and our elementary campus to grow. I'd like to see enrollment growth continue. We also know that our students are outperforming their peers at our other neighborhood Ward 1 schools, especially at the secondary level. We think that we're a great option for them, and we'd like to bring them over to Meridian and continue to grow both of our campuses through those efforts. Steve, anything else to add? Think you're muted, Steve.
Success.
building on adding to what Matt was saying, a number of years ago, we created a vision, which we hired Matt to enact this vision of one school, one community, one city, making sure our students aren't just inhabitants of their neighborhood, but part of the city and can develop the skills, especially with EL education, of the curiosity, resilience, and leadership to go forward in their lives, both in school and in their lives outside. But also, and we have wonderful facilities, both our elementary school facility and our middle school facility. But one of the things that makes me sort of, I don't want to say proud, but pleased to be part of this school is we have a growing at-risk population of students. We have a large English language learner community, which sometimes allows, as I think Mr. Salmon was saying here, that sometimes people accuse charter schools of skimming off the top. Well, we're the exact opposite of that. We're trying to serve people that other schools would have difficulty with, and families are choosing us for that, and that's something that I think we should be proud of, and that's something that's going to be going forward in our life as a school.
Thank you again for this presentation. I had a question about the mid-year withdrawal rates and wanted to ask how aware you are of this, in particular for your elementary and your middle schools, where we see rates that are higher than what we otherwise see in the sector, particularly for emerging multilingual, multi-language students and students with disabilities. Can you speak to that?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Chair Cruzy. I was hoping I'd get asked that. I believe that mid-year withdrawal rates that you see in the report don't actually tell the whole story. The pre-K EML rate, for instance, only represents a very small handful of children. If that were broken out, you'd see that. But I think the better story is told for our re-enrollment rates. As the board knows, mid-year withdrawal rates don't take into account when students leave the city entirely. That is taken into account for re-enrollment rates. Those students don't end up in the denominator. We anecdotally know that many of the students that leave Meridian don't go to other LEAs. They leave the city entirely. And with a transient population such as the one we serve, that's not entirely surprising. In the last year, we've lost a lot of students just over the border to Maryland, to other states. It's not indicative, from what they tell us, of a lack of satisfaction with Meridian. It's just family needs that cause them to move over. And what I would say is, when we look at the re-enrollment rates, while our mid-year withdrawal rates are higher than the sector, our re-enrollment rates are also much higher than the sector, about 7 percentage points higher than the sector, and higher than the sector in all of our demographic subgroups. So when we remove the students from the equation that are leaving the city entirely, it paints a much different picture than our mid-year withdrawal rates do.
And what's that picture, Matthew? That is what? Is it still above the sector? Is it within the sector?
Well, mid-year withdrawal rates being higher than the sector is not good, but re-enrollment rates being higher than the sector is very good. So the average re-enrollment rate in the sector was closer to 80. Ours last year was 87%, and for the last 4 or 5 years, it's been in the high 80s, low 90s.
Right. Okay. But we were talking about the mid-year withdrawals. I'm saying, what story? You said it's painting a different story. And my question is, what story is it painting regarding mid-year withdrawals?
Right. That a large number of the mid-year withdrawals aren't leaving us for other LEAs, that they're leaving us to leave the city entirely. And that's not, in my viewpoint at least, not indicative of a lack of satisfaction with Meridian. It's family needs or economic needs that are driving them to leave the city entirely and go to LEAs in other states.
Right. So are you saying that, so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So are you saying that if you withdraw the withdrawals that are out of state, that your mid-year withdrawal rates don't exceed the sector, that if you just consider that it is kind of the normal rate of mid-year withdrawals that happen?
That would be my guess, but since I don't have the sector-wide mid-year withdrawal rates removing students that are leaving the city as well, I can't make a fair comparison there. I can only say the thing that I do have a fair comparison on, the re-enrollment rates, which should be telling the same story, seem to be telling us different stories. But our mid-year withdrawal rates do go down quite a bit when we take out the students that have left the city entirely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think the message as you all continue to enroll, and I think this is just a challenge for all of us, understanding definitely the factors that lead to families leaving that are outside of any LEA's control, but making sure that you're just watching it, that there aren't some unintended things happening that are resulting in a higher, I don't know the answer either, which is why I was asking you that, but that isn't unintentionally creating a withdrawal rate that you don't want, right? In terms of children feeling either pushed out or choosing otherwise for other reasons.
Yeah, I appreciate that push, Treasurer Wright. The other thing that I'd want to highlight about Meridian with mid-year withdrawals is I believe we're one of the few charter LEAs that accept students mid-year as well. Oftentimes, I hear stories from my team about newcomer students especially that are just arriving in the country, and we can't control when they arrive. They can arrive during the lottery window. They also sometimes arrive in November, December, and they need a great school to go to, and Meridian is here to receive them. And when you look at our mid-year entry rates, we oftentimes enroll students in December, January, February, March even, that other LEAs in the charter sector would say no to until the next year.
And that's an important piece too. So absolutely, yeah.
Although we are losing students mid-year, we are also students mid-year.
Great. That's good. That's good to hear. And we should all be accepting students at that same time as well. So thank you for that.
Board members, if we don't have further questions, I will invite a motion. I also want to name that. So your 25-year review means that your oldest, you have been around for almost twice as long as your oldest students.
We have staff members at Meridian that are former students at Meridian. We have parents at Meridian that attended Meridian. We have some children at Meridian that have older aunts and uncles, almost grandparents that attended Meridian very early on. So we are a school that's been a part of this community for a very long time and hope to be here for a very long time to come.
I move to continue the charter of Meridian Public Charter School.
Second.
Secretary Adama-Fanian, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Absolutely. Chairwoman Cruzy.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Salmon.
Aye.
Treasurer Wright.
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty.
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Aye.
And I am an aye.
Congratulations, Meridian. Thank you for your service support today.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Keep pushing.
Next on our agenda is a charter amendment request. Tonight's request is from DC Wildflower Public Charter School, and for that I will yield the floor to Hannah Cousineau, Senior Manager of Sector Planning and Compliance. I would also like to invite representatives from the school to provide remarks. Rochelle Kimboko, Cliff Busey, Jordan Kerstetter, and Neil Campbell. Welcome back. We saw you last month.
Okay, I think that's everybody. Hello, my name is Hannah Cousineau, and I am a senior manager in the school performance department. Staff recommends that you approve the amendment request from DC Wildflower Public Charter School regarding its request to open a second facility site. Per its charter agreement, the school has conditional approval to operate up to 6 facilities with a total enrollment ceiling of 225 students in grades pre-kindergarten 3 through 5. Currently, DC Wildflower Public Charter School operates a single facility, the Riverseed School, at 913 55th Street Northeast in Ward 7. The school seeks to open a second facility named Blue Montessori at 1516 Marion Berry Avenue Southeast in Ward 8. At capacity, this facility will enroll 30 students in grades pre-kindergarten 3 through kindergarten. Based on DC PCSB staff's final analysis, DC Wildflower PCS has met the conditions to open the Blue Montessori facility. These conditions include executing a lease agreement, identifying teacher leaders, and engaging community stakeholders. By the March 18th, 2024 deadline, DC PCSB received 1 public comment against the amendment request and 3 in support, including 1 testimony. After the deadline, Advisory Neighborhood Commission 8A informed DC PCSB via email that the ANC voted to not provide a letter of support for the Blue Montessori facility. Despite multiple requests from DC PCSB, ANC 8A did not offer further explanation, such as the issues raised or recommendations made in this vote. Thus, staff could not assign great weight to issues or recommendations from the ANC in this proposal. Representatives from the school are here to answer any of your questions.
Good evening, Chairman Cruzy. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, board members. I just want to quickly, we don't have a prepared presentation. We'll take questions from you all, but I did want to speak a little bit to the ANC situation and how we are how we did attempt to address the concerns that were voiced to us, and as well to respond to Ms. Javelow's commentary at the beginning. So I do want to clarify that, in fact, our application does reference Lee, Ketchum, and DC Prep. And in all 3 cases, we were in communication with those school leaders, and you were submitted the letters that we wrote to them. In particular, in the Ketchum letter, we explicitly said, and by we, I mean me, explicitly named that we would not recruit from the early childhood program that is their primary feeder. So it is not accurate to say that we kind of claimed that we had done it without any documentation. It is in the application. Our presentation in the March meeting shared a photo of the location, which is the one, in fact, that Hannah used in the report that she's submitted to you. And I think that more importantly, our application anticipated some of the concerns that we knew the ANC had, because at the point that we were submitting that to you, we had talked with them. We'd had an opportunity to get feedback from them. So the 3 big concerns for them were clearly the competition with the schools that are in the immediate area, and another big concern was around security. And so I did really want to emphasize how much effort we have put into working with Lalique and Associates to come up with some safety plans for the space itself and ways to make the space safer, as well as reaching out to the district and the Safe Passages program to ensure that they're aware that we will be right there. Because they were not, obviously they were not aware yet that we would be in that location, but now we're on that list of schools that are in the Safe Passages region. And I will stop there, and we are here to answer questions from you.
Thank you, Ms. Kimboko, for the presentation, and particularly for the update, because that was exactly what I was going to ask about. Other board members, do we have additional questions?
I have a question for Hannah. Hannah, is my understanding correct that the Advisory Neighborhood Commission did not recommend against the application here? They simply said they are not recommending for. Those are 2 different things to me.
Yes.
And that's my understanding, but without like written formal confirmation from the ANC. I don't have that explicitly stated from them, but that was my understanding that I'm going off of.
You attempted to follow up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I should probably point out, Cliff, this was, I think, a relationship that you had been cultivating. We did end up with a letter of support from an ANC, not in our immediate Ward 8, in our immediate 8A area, who did write a letter of support. So similar to the situation with the Board of Ed, while we had a negative person, we also, I don't want to say a negative person, but you know what I mean. While we had a lack of support, we also had a balancing, um, kind of a balancing or counterbalancing comment from someone with a similar position, saying that they did support the work.
So I would just want to say thank you, Rachel, for addressing head on the feedback that you heard earlier and the feedback that is gone. As I said last time that we met, I just want to continue to encourage you all to continue to work within your community, right? We don't just put schools just because, right? We want to be part of the community and impacting community. Also understanding that while I appreciate the effort that you all are saying in terms of not intentionally going after other schools, right? You are also a free public school as well. And so want to make sure that we all recognize that and note that as well, and that you don't find yourself in an unintended situation where maybe you do have a parent from another school call you and inquire, and you end up in the other way, right? So we want to be mindful of working within our community, and I appreciate the work that Cliff and Jordan have done to continue to know their neighbors and speak with them and know those fellow schoolers. Because at the end of the day, that's all we want to do is, as a city, we want to assume our partners and the other sector want to do that, our daycares, et cetera. We just want to give children an opportunity. So continue to keep the lines of communication open, but also be mindful. Don't set yourself up that you promise so much that you then end up on another call with us saying you've told somebody they can't come, et cetera, right? So just continue to do the good work, but continue to also do what you're doing, Rachel, which is when you hear the things, like name them head on, and when they're true, acknowledge them, and when they're not, also speak truth to them as well. So thank you for that.
Delicate balance.
Very.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I just had a question, and forgive me, I remember our discussion about this, and I actually took notes and didn't bring my notes. Can you remind me of your budget for the renovations?
Our budget is in the under $200,000, so it's fairly small. It may actually end up being smaller than that. We're having to address some HVAC issues because we're moving from commercial space to a school space. We're changing the flooring, and adding child size facilities. So it's a fairly small list. But we're ready to get started with it as soon as we have approval. So
that's what I remember. And you are not securing financing for the budget, or are you securing financing?
We've set aside money to do it without financing. We may go ahead and pursue some, but right now it sits within what we can do ourselves between this year and next fiscal year.
Okay. And there was a note, I think what stimulated the question also was that there was a note that you all are positioned to secure financing if you need to, and that's what you were just speaking to. Okay.
Yeah, OSSI, we're able to get OSSI direct loan. At one, it turns out you can get it per facility, which we didn't realize when we purchased Riverseed. So the good news is, that's available as we extend to new facilities. Hopefully we won't be taking out, a full 2 million again for a while.
Thank you.
Colleagues, I will now entertain a motion.
I move to approve the charter amendment of DC Wildflower Public Charter School and authorize the board chair to sign such amendment.
Second.
Ooh, double second.
Thank you. Secretary Adamafanian, would you mind taking a roll call vote?
Absolutely. Chairwoman Cruzy?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman?
Aye.
Treasurer Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty?
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez?
Aye.
And I am an I as well.
I see the smiles,
Congratulations.
Gordon and Cliff. I see the smile.
You see the
Congratulations.
tears
you. I know,
too.
right?
Thank
Like,
you.
okay.
And the deep sigh of
Oh my
relief.
God.
Yes, a big
Congratulations.
sigh of relief. Exactly right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all your words of
And thank you,
encouragement
Hannah, for all your
trusting
support.
and believing us. We
Good. Well,
truly appreciate it. So we hope to make the Public Charter School Board proud.
good. Do good work. Do good
Thank
work.
you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Wildflower. Board, next we will vote on the consent calendar. Would any board member like to remove an item from the calendar for further discussion or state a recusal for the record? Excuse me. If not, I will entertain a motion on the consent calendar.
Apologies. I move to approve all items on the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a roll call vote. Secretary Adamafanian, please.
Chairwoman Cruzy,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman,
Aye.
Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Aye.
I am an I as well.
All right, thank you, board. This concludes the public meeting agenda items, and we will now move forward with our public hearing. Again, we have a bit of a truncated agenda this evening. We actually have no registered public comment speakers tonight testifying on the public hearing topic of Aspire this evening. So this concludes the public comment portion of our public hearing. Next, the board will discuss the Aspire technical guide, and for that, I will yield the floor back to Dr. Walker Davis and Kirsten Floyd, Director of Data and Accountability, to facilitate this discussion. Welcome back, Kirsten.
Thank you, Chair Cruzy. Board members, surprisingly, we do not have a presentation for you this evening, but we are available to answer any questions that you have about the Aspire policy technical guide. If you do have questions on the charter goals policy, we can answer those in the context of Aspire. I do want to name, as you know, that we have collected quite a bit of public comment on this process. Our goal is to look at all of the feedback that we've received. We will, as we've done in the past, summarize all of those public comments in the proposal that the board gets. And as I mentioned at the top of the meeting, there are several targeted outreach efforts that we have with particular school communities, and we'll like to bring back all of the changes as we make them to our schools prior to the vote, just so that they have a preview of what we're going to do. But if there are specific questions, Kirsten is here to answer many of them, and I am also available to answer any questions that you have. I will turn it over to Kirsten.
Good evening, board members. I am Kirsten Floyd, a director in the School Performance Department. Tonight, we're holding the third of 3 public hearings for the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide, DCPCSB staff's proposed revision to its academic accountability system, currently called the Performance Management Framework, or PMF. Like the PMF, the proposed Aspire system measures how well DC public charter schools serve students, but offers important revisions to the PMF and how DCPCSB evaluates school performance. The proposed Aspire system introduces scored school-specific performance measures for all schools. For pre-K to 12 schools, revisions include evaluating measures by student group performance, new school progress measures, replacing in-seat attendance with chronic absenteeism, and an opportunity to earn bonus points for academic growth. For adult education schools, the proposed framework recognizes mid-level certification achievement and removes in-seat attendance from the school environment category. And for alternative accountability framework schools, Aspire aligns their framework categories with the other frameworks. DCPCSB staff proposes that its board use the Aspire system to make school oversight decisions as it did with the PMF. For example, staff proposes deeming level 1 Aspire schools as generally eligible to expand, replicate, or otherwise grow to serve more students. And staff recommends that schools earning level 4 or level 5 may be subject to increased oversight. DCPCSB staff recognizes the significance of this shift from PMF to Aspire and this return to an accountability system following the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. With that in mind, we've held 3 public hearings to ensure stakeholders have ample opportunities to give input. We will ask the board to vote on the Aspire Policy and Technical Guide on June 10th. I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kirsten and Dr. Walker Davis. I look forward to reviewing how the staff responds to the thematic elements of the many public comments we've received. And just want to remind, so June 10th will be a special board meeting, is that right?
Yes.
And that is when we will vote on this. And is it at that meeting, and it's in the materials presented in advance of that meeting, that we in the public will be able to view how the staff responds to those public comments?
Correct.
Thank you. Board members?
Kirsten, and Dr. Walker Davis. So there's been a lot of feedback given, a lot of public comment in person, in writing, et cetera. Can you just share with us, I guess I have a couple questions. One, what are you grappling with right now most when it comes to the policies and the technical guides, et cetera? So I'll start there. What are you grappling with the most in terms of trying to figure out? And then I have some specific questions.
I'll start, and Kirsten is probably doing the most grappling in terms of the day-to-day, all of the moving pieces. But as you've seen in the presentations that we've had and those board members who've been able to participate in our engagement with LEAs, this has been an all hands on deck in our organization. So I jokingly say that Kirsten is grappling with a lot of it, but we all are, quite frankly. And as you've heard from the public comment that we received to date, I believe the top priority for many of our schools is the timeline associated with implementation of Aspire and a request for a pilot. We've heard a lot about that language around the pilot. So I think what I am grappling with the most is how to honor the spirit and the intent behind us doing as much engagement and feedback and seeking the input of our school leaders and giving schools time to get adjusted to the new accountability, and also moving forward with accountability, all of the guiding principles that we have in setting up the accountability framework, wanting to make sure that we are clear on the direction of where we want to propose to this board, and ultimately that we hope the board will adopt for our charter schools and for the sector. And so how do we have the appropriate balance of looking forward with Aspire, but also honoring the time that it will take for schools to understand the framework and adjust to that? And so what does that look like? How do we put a meaningful proposal in front of you as board members so that you have the information that you need to make oversight decisions, and schools have the time that they need to appropriately change programming and resources, et cetera, to align with the kind of results that they want to see produced through that framework. So I would say hands down, that's the biggest issue for us to resolve, and that I believe you will see in the proposal that we put forward, how we respond to what we've heard. The second, I think, is not something that is insurmountable, but as you heard from our high school leaders, we are challenged with the fact that high school is our culminating experience for the pre-K-12. And so while in spirit, we want to honor the notion of rewarding high levels of growth, we have limited time during the high school years to really do that in the same way that we're able to do earlier in the pre-K-12 experience. And so as you've seen, the high school framework does not have the same proportion of growth as our other frameworks do, but I do believe that the team has been very thoughtful on how do we honor where we want to see our students finish in high school, but also give opportunities to reward the really good work that high schools are trying to do to create meaningful post-secondary preparation experiences for our students. And then lastly, you've heard from our adult education leaders about, I don't think that there's a challenge necessarily around the measures. I think there's quite a bit of agreement around the measures that we want to see in the framework. We've just been challenged to be able to provide them the data on how this framework is working because of the limitations of the inputs, as I mentioned earlier, from OSSI. We are working collaboratively toward a fix for that, but I think that would be just the challenge there for them to actually see what that looks like with the measures that, quite frankly, they recommended and that we generally adopted wholesale. Kirsten, I don't know if you have more to add there.
Yes to all of that. And I am grappling with ensuring that all of the details and elements of the system are clear in the technical guide. What I heard in some public comment was kind of misinformation, if you will, or a misunderstanding of what our intent or what the actual calculations do. And so I want to make sure that all of those details are accessible in the technical guide and written in such a way that folks have a clear understanding of how we are aligned to our guiding principles and how we have made intentional decisions about the system that are improvements.
So I just have two questions, specific questions. One, the last meeting we had, there was a conversation, if you will, or to come up in a way that I had not heard before around the subgroups and whether or not these were floors, targets, and there was some sort of lowering of expectations or inequity. And I want to spend a minute there because I think that I thought your response to that was very clear in terms of why we do it and why we're showing it. And I really want to get at why it is important to show these differences and why the floors and targets look the way they do versus it being something that PCSB has set up, if you will. So if you could just talk about that and any reflection that you all have had as a team around this, whether that is continuing to stay firm in it or thought differently about how to talk about it. I'd like to just give another opportunity for us to talk about that. And then I just have my last question.
So I will say, I have been going through the public comment more closely, especially the written ones. And there was a public comment made about standards for attendance, and that at a certain ISA, that equated to a quality program. So specifically with early childhood at 90% attendance or ISA, that indicates that students are in the program often enough to benefit from all of the instruction and so on and so forth. All that to say, it was a public comment that really made me think about student groups and how we're setting floors and targets and which measures we do that for. So I want to clarify that for some measures, we have several approaches to floors and targets. Only one of them is the 10th and 90th percentile by student groups. So I had mentioned previously that median growth percentile has a standard floor and target because by nature that measure is relative performance. And so all student groups have the same floor and target. So that's one. Another is aspirational. So something like 9th grade on track, which measures whether or not students at the end of 9th grade have the necessary credits to graduate in 4 years. That target is aspirational. We want at least 90% of 9th graders to be on track to graduate. And we don't believe that that should be different across student groups. And that's what it is. And then for academic performance, like PARCC proficiency or DC CAPE proficiency, we have the 10th and 90th percentile by student group defines the floor and the target. The differentiation of floors and targets by student group acknowledges the fact that different student groups historically and currently have different performance. And if we were to set a standard benchmark for where everyone should be, we would likely see very wide gaps in performance. So there would be some groups that meet the benchmark all the time and some groups that never meet the benchmark. When we set the floors and targets at the 10th and 90th percentile of the student group, so across the state, we're looking at comparisons of performance and how other schools are serving the same students or the outcomes of the same groups of students at other schools. And that defines the range of performance for acquiring points for the Aspire system. So it is creating a relative barometer for student group performance. And it is allowing us to compare students to like students. I hope that answered it. Did that help, board member Wright?
I think it helped. I just want to continue to get on record how we're thinking about this, why we're thinking about it, and why it matters as we continue to have this conversation. I think it came up last week, and if we're not careful and don't address it, it can take a life of its own and actually undermine what we intended when we were being as thoughtful as possible. I did see some public comment around the naming of it and in terms of how we frame it and how we talk about it, that I'm sure you all will think about. But I just wanted to get on public record why it's important and how we think about it. So my last comment.
Board member Wright, if I can just add here, you asked where we are currently, and we are committed to the approach that the multiple approaches that we're taking to floors and targets, but in particular, as Kirsten just explained, for student group and proficiency, we do think it's appropriate. That does not exclude or preclude us from looking at future ways to discuss equity as we think about the evolution of Aspire. I don't know if we'll be 3.0, 4.0. That does not preclude us from doing that. But I do want to acknowledge that we did not have student groups disaggregated in our PMF. And throughout this process, school leaders and PCSB agreed that this was important information for us to be highlighting. And as I mentioned, upon reflection at the board meeting, and I think during the meeting, this was the first time we heard that particular argument around floors and targets articulated in that way, that had not come up in our conversations with school leaders to date. And I think it's an important step for us to take that we are committed to. We are open to looking at other ways to explore equity in addition to a disaggregation of student groups in the manner that we've articulated now.
Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis. I appreciate that unapologetic stance. Kirsten, it's my understanding, there are three main documents that are governing our Aspire right now: the FAQs, the Charter Goals Policy, and the Technical Guide. You did this. Does that mean this? Am I missing something else?
I mean, it's a lot of documents, Chantel. It's a lot of documents.
Those are the three that we continue to hear from school leaders. One of the things that was brought up and at the last meeting too was that it was hard to actually respond to it in the moment because we don't have those documents, and like you said, they're so dense too. What are you all doing to ensure that there's consistency between the three documents? Is there some sort of crosswalk to make sure? And I think particularly school leaders are more focused on the consequence portion of it, right? Like what happens if and when. But what are we doing to make sure that there is consistency but among those three? Let's deal with at least those three documents. And then thank you, board, for allowing me to move.
So I'll say a couple of things in response to that. One is, I actually was talking to someone today about how the consequences and levels are presented in the Charter Goals Policy versus the Technical Guide. And the clarification that I made was in the technical guide, it talks about at level 1, a school is likely eligible for expansion to serve more students. At level 2, it may be eligible. At level 3, also may be, and then levels 4 and 5, not likely to be eligible for expansion. And in the tech guide, it also says level 5 is possible candidate for revocation. So it outlines those things based on how any school performs on Aspire, in the Aspire system. The charter goals policy talks about level 3 and above meeting your charter goals, and below that, the consequences that come with that as well. So in the charter goals policy, it's referring to Aspire as when a school adopts Aspire as its goals. And so the context is different. One is goal determination. You need to have at least 3 or above. And the other is for any school, even if you have individually negotiated goals, with something like an expansion policy, they are going to reference how you performed on the Aspire system as criteria for meeting, for being able to expand, if that makes sense. So there's one thing I want to make clear is that there are different contexts for the information. It is similar, but it's telling you 2 different things. One is talking about how we're evaluating every school and how that information informs other policies or decisions that you can make. The other is goal determination. In your charter agreement, when you elect to adopt Aspire as goals, how do you need to perform in order to say that you've met your goals? So
is it,
go ahead.
Is that by default though? I don't want to say contradictory, but is there a way for us to make that clearer? Because if I'm even just taking what you just said to me, I don't know why there would be a different way for me to attain my goal versus how you think about all schools. Like, why would that be different?
Well, for a school that has individually negotiated goals, most times it doesn't really matter how they performed on Aspire because they have their own goals. And when we're looking at goal determination for their review, we're looking at if they met the goals that are outlined in their charter agreement.
Right.
If they are applying to serve more students, in addition to many other things that are in the expansion policy, they're going to look at how this school has performed annually on the Aspire system or PMF previously. So of the list of criteria that you have to meet in order to expand, aside from whether or not you've met your goals, this standard evaluation system that we have for all of our schools, where have you landed annually on that?
That's interesting. Okay.
And Board Member Wright, I think that is a primary distinction that has gotten perhaps not lost, but maybe buried in the conversation about Aspire. Aspire is our accountability system, as Kirsten said, for every school, and it is a tool for board members to make oversight decisions about a number of things. Most immediately coming shortly after the vote will be the expansion policies, which previously were ECI grade expansions. Are there any other pieces that we think it is appropriate to use that system, regardless of what the content of a school's charter is? And so while they are related, the language around consequences are probably where you're going to see the most overlap between the tech guide and the charter goals policy, particularly for the schools who have adopted Aspire as their framework. But I think the important distinction is, regardless of what path an individual school takes, we will annually report on performance on Aspire. We will annually make decisions, or whenever they are appropriately coming before the board for schools, and to use that data available to us, sometimes in addition to the school's goals. And so that I think is the major distinction. And I think what you saw in both my face and Kirsten's face is that we have been so focused on the alignment of both the public comment and our original policy for both the charter goals and the technical guide that for me, the FAQs, there's a team working in the background trying to update that as we go. But I guess I was a little, I was reacting to the FAQs being one of the three sort of governing documents. It will ultimately be that when we add all of the questions that we've gotten through the public comment process. But I think at this point, we have been focused on making sure that we are addressing what has been outlined and what was proposed on the tech guide and the policy. So, yes.
Yeah. No, I think that, yes. And I think schools do see the FAQ as a pretty, it's not a governing document, but I do think it's one they go to pretty regularly. I actually appreciate that clarity that you just said, Dr. Go. So if I repeat what you say, and what I think LEAs probably need to hear is that regardless of whether or not I adopt Aspire, there are certain policies and decisions that are still going to be made based off your performance for Aspire. And so there could very well be a case, although I think, individually negotiated goals under this policy will not allow that, but there could be a case where I may be hitting my goals, right? They're my individually negotiated goals. Should I go there? But there may be a place like expansion, replication, et cetera, where my performance on Aspire, despite my goal attainment, could impact what my ability to move and do something under that policy looks like.
Absolutely. That's the perfect example. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's important to put on the record as well and I appreciate the clarity of what you said. Aspire is indeed our accountability framework for all schools, regardless, and therefore how we're implementing many of the policies moving forward. So I would share that to say, LEAs, I think, because I do think there could be a misnomer that even if you don't adopt Aspire, it's not impacting you in some way, right? Or that as long as you have really strong negotiated goals. But I want LEAs to hear, and I think the clarity in which you just stated is it's our accountability system. So we will indeed refer to it whether it was adopted as part of your charter or not.
One other point I want to make, that is not new for Aspire. That was also true of the PMF. That's exactly how we use the performance management framework. So I want to make sure that LEAs realize that this is our revised accountability system.
Yeah, thank you.
Board Member Rodriguez, did I see you had a question?
Yes, thank you. So wanted to pick up on one thing from the prior conversation. Thank you, Board Member Wright. I think your views match a lot with what I've been thinking. And then I had one other thing to say. So first on the floors and targets, the sense I got coming away from that conversation was sort of I see there are multiple ways to do it, right? Multiple ways to think about different groups of students. And the public commenters said a lot about kind of other states and different approaches they've adopted around similar schools. I think it will be good when we come back with a proposal to sort of explain why one path and not the other. I think that's just a good idea. I remember having those conversations privately and kind of be able to bring them up publicly as well. I think that So the one question I have around that is sort of, I'm comfortable with this idea of kind of different targets for different groups insofar as it's about the school and their accountability for where they should be next year, the year after, et cetera. I'm far less comfortable with this idea that that's how you should think about an individual student's goals, which of course is not what an accountability system is supposed to do, right? Or at least I think, again, thinking about some of the commenters, the challenge I have is I'd love to make sure we can push the system to ensure that there is no sort of incentive for a school to say, oh, students gotten to a certain level that is at this target that is specific to their group. And so therefore, I'm not going to pay attention to them anymore, right? That was cited a few times. So I think ensuring that schools don't face incentives to do things like that would be important. But I think that's different from this question of how do we think about a school's overall accountability for the groups that it has, or at least it could be. So that would be kind of my way of dividing that in terms of principles. Would love to hear if you have any sort of commentary on that.
The one thing that I will say is we have not designed a system that has a summative score for each student group. So we are not reporting on the student group's overall performance. Everything is a roll-up of how the student group did it for that measure and how all of the student groups collectively did for the measure, which rolls up into a summative score for the school. And so at no point are we saying, you know, a particular student group is a standout for everything. I think having the nuance of student group performance allows us to see where there are bright spots and areas for improvement. And I don't think that the bright spots would mean schools would say, okay, we don't have to do anything with those kids anymore. And the bright spots may not be across every single measure. I think that it's important to note that we did not go the route of having a summative score for each student group because we are looking at the school as a collective. Yeah. And we do want to look at specific outcomes for specific student groups in order for the efforts and resources to be allocated appropriately.
Yeah, good. Another way to put it would be, if in the grand scheme of things, right, like we meet the target as set by the target, individual students in that group doing even better and continuing to improve will benefit the school in the Aspire framework. Is that fair?
Yes.
So there's no like, there's no like, oh yeah, we've gotten there and that's it. And I think that is the important thing in my mind, right? Like, so as we think about that, because it is a tool for thinking about equity and thinking about comparison, but in terms of how schools actually experience getting credit or not getting credit, which is just brass tacks, an important thing. I think that's an important point for us to kind of emphasize and be clear about. All right, second question about the so-called real pilot, which Dr. Walker Davis, you brought up. I think maybe I'm a little thick-headed here. I'm just beating the same drum over again. It feels to me like it is a false dichotomy to talk about like pilot or not pilot, or like it's like we've turned the framework on or we haven't turned it on, when in fact it feels to me like what causes the framework to have effect is its companionship with the charter goals policy and the way that is applied and the way pathways are applied. And so I feel as if there is a nuance here of saying like, there is no such thing as a pilot year or a not pilot year. Like even the original pathway we have now suggests full accountability as sort of eventually envisioned doesn't happen for several years. And so I think it's a question of turning the knobs here and there around what we think is reasonable for next year that would cause the school community to think, oh, at least this feels a bit more pilot-like, but I don't think we'd ever get to the point we would say, it's a full pilot, because basically we're not doing anything. We're definitely doing something next year. So that was just my other thought there. And I think it's important for us to have, tell me if my understanding of that is right. And if there's any nuance you'd want to add to that.
It is spot on, Board Member Rodriguez. And my hope is that we are able to present a proposal to the board where you feel comfortable with moving forward with our Aspire framework, regardless of how you choose to approve or not approve consequences or rewards associated with that framework. We have been working for over 2 years in collaboration with a lot of stakeholders, and we believe that we have a product and will further refine as we get to that vote that I think reflects the guiding principles that this board adopted to inform our work and all of the deep thinking and feedback that we've heard from schools. We are certainly not going to agree with every single thing that we heard, but we have definitely justification for what we will put in front of you. And we will certainly reflect on the feedback we heard about how far that dial goes up now versus 25, 26 versus 26, 27 and beyond. But you are hearing from me tonight, and I hope the LEAs understand this work is not for naught. We are moving forward. This is a better, more refined tool than we had with the performance management framework. And I believe that the work that we have done here will set us up to further refine in the future. But we want to set a course for the next few years. And I think that we are almost there. And I will be excited on June 10th to be able to seek your vote and approval of the Aspire framework.
Secretary Adama Fanian, looks like you've got a question.
Yep, thank you. It's Probably less than, it's not even a question. It's more of a statement that I would like to just put on record because of just how important it is. First and foremost, and in every room, every seat, every time I get the opportunity, I will congratulate you, Dr. Walker Davis, Kirsten, just for the work and the staff for the work that you all have put into designing and on June 10th, putting forth a more evolved framework that actually gets at some of the challenges we've been talking about for decades now in this city. When I first joined the board and when I started looking at the data as to where the students were, it just became almost like, I don't know, Groundhog Day. What do we do with the students, and why aren't the students moving, and why are African American students progressing, and what does this mean here, and what's going on with our Latino? Like, we had the same questions over and over again. Every education conference I've gone to, every conversation in this city, we want to know, well, why aren't the kids moving? Well, here we are, right? We, rather than guessing and applying things and almost throwing pasta at the wall, we're now going to get some real insight and get some real data so we can start having real conversations around what other investments need to be made in order to support our students moving forward. And for that, I deeply appreciate you all's commitment to making sure that that information is out there. It may not feel good to my LEA partners, and that's okay, but at least you know, and we're going to move forward. And so I really, really appreciate it. And I mean, again, but for getting folks to understand exactly how this will show up and look like, and the consequence that could or could not be applied, I think that's the end of that discussion, at least for me. And I will also name too, as I named at the last meeting, I have deep faith in the school leaders who choose to open up schools in the city, that they are not just resting on what measures, whatever the target measure is on this particular framework, but they're shooting for 100% proficiency for every single child in the building that walks through the doors, because our kids deserve that level of commitment. So I for myself, I plan not to engage in that kind of belief that, oh, we could perhaps be, no, I don't. I deeply believe that everybody, and Board Member Rodriguez, you and I are we're cool. I'm not coming, at you. I'm just simply saying to our LEAs and to our city, I deeply believe that everyone who sits and puts time into that application, who talks to A and C reps, who talks to parents and try to convince them to come to their school, they are shooting for 100% proficiency for every child that walks through that door. And I refuse to believe anything else. And if that should be the case, that's a different conversation for me. So to that, I just want to put on record, I'm glad that that was addressed. Thank you for your work. And thank you for depositing a seed that's going to cause us to have different conversations about what's happening with students beyond what we've been talking about. We're now going to begin to really figure out how to move our kids. So thank you.
Our meetings just get better the later the night goes. Thank you, Dr. Walker Davis, Kirsten, and board members for this discussion. We look forward to continuing to engage in robust discussion about Aspire ahead of the June 10th vote. I want to acknowledge also that this latest discussion in Aspire was largely highly technical. And it's extremely important for us to get on the record. Thank you for Treasurer Wright for your thoughtful questions that really kicked this off, and reminder that it's important for us to get this on the record of what and why decisions around this framework are being made. I also want to assure other stakeholders in school communities, most particularly parents, that what must also come are explanations that also help clarify for you what and why decisions around this framework are being made in a less technical manner. Above all, it's critical that we, the oversight body for charter schools in the District of Columbia, have a complete picture of how a school we have authorized is serving its students. All right. Is there any new business? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the April 22nd, 2024 board meeting.
I'll second. All right, Secretary Adamafanian, would you mind taking the final roll call vote?
Absolutely. Chairwoman Cruzy?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Sandman? I believe you're on mute, sir.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Wright,
Aye.
Board Member Stanley Beatty,
Aye.
Board Member Rodriguez.
Aye.
I am an aye.
Good night. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
At all. Thank you.
Good night.